3rd, 2026 regular meeting of the Eugene Water and Electric Board to order. Welcome. And first agenda item is the agenda check. And in doing so, I think I've been advised by fellow commissioners that we have public input this evening. We've got 20 minutes scheduled. Here. Got 20 minutes scheduled. I apologize. And so we got 20 minutes scheduled. We've got 31 people signed up. And right now our allocation is 3 minutes. That's an hour and a half. I have several options by board policy. I can say that we can take our allocated time divided by the number of people, or I can cut testimony from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, or we can have consideration to just extend this. And it's the will of the board. So I'm opening that up to you before we go up into any other agenda items. So to see what we do, because logistically we're not going to make it 20 minutes. And I don't want to cut anybody off. I want to give everybody the opportunity to be heard. So I'll just go around. Minnie, what is your will? Extend the public input, cut the time from 3 minutes to 2, or you have a choice? Tim? Need an answer.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at our agenda.
I'm looking for input. I'm looking for feedback.
I would support either extending public input time or bringing it down to 2 minutes.
Well, okay.
So let me give
That's like how long's a
a
piece of
strong
string?
answer. I would support bringing it to 2 minutes.
Which one would you prefer?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, Mindy.
2 minutes.
John?
What my hope would be, yes, definitely shorten it to 2 minutes. I would also maybe put a cap at 45 minutes. We have a lot of other items on the agenda, but I'm willing with that. And then the other thing is, if the people who are speaking tonight, if you could be shorter than 2 minutes, that would help more people get into it. And if somebody has already said something that you said, you could get up there and say, I believe what he says, or I'm opposed to what but whatever. But I would say definitely the 2 minutes, and at some form of cap. If not 45 minutes, 1 hour. That's all. That will almost get us in if we can be judicious.
Okay. Sonia? You're muted. You're muted.
I'm not muted.
We can't hear you.
Can help. I'm not.
Still can't hear you. That doesn't do me any good. I can't read lips, so help me. Are you okay? 2 minutes? Is that a thumbs up? Is 2 minutes a thumbs up? No. 2 minutes is fine.
Extend
You
it.
want to extend it? Okay, so we've got. This isn't working. We're going to have to solve this problem because she wants input later on all of these items. And so.
All right, so I'll make a motion to extend the public testimony for 1 hour from 20 minutes to 1 hour, and 1 hour maximum, and have 2 minute time limit for our speakers to speak.
There's a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Yep. Okay, thank you. So we're going to cut it to 2 minutes, and please try and help us get through this. Anne or Holly, could you try and work out this problem with step down with Sonia, so we can have her there. So before I open the next thing I want to just do the facility safety awareness and meeting logistics briefing. I want to thank everybody for attending the meeting. We have EWEB management and subject matter experts are present in the room and virtually. The meeting is being streamed live and recorded. Please speak loudly and clearly so everyone can hear you. Public testimony is welcome. Sign-up forms are available at the back of the room. Visitor access is limited to the board meeting room and restrooms. Restrooms are located on the first floor. Exit through the right-hand door at the right of the room and cross the hallway. In the event of an emergency, such as fire or security incident, follow all instructions given by staff. Evacuation is required. Please calmly proceed to the nearest safe exit as identified and directed by staff, and evacuate away from the building to the farthest points in the parking lots to allow clear and immediate access for first responders. So the next agenda item is item for board members and the general manager. Mindy. Yep.
Nothing for me.
John.
Pass.
I'll try Sonia. Anything from you, Sonia? Still not working yet. Okay. Frank, welcome back.
Thank you, President Brown. Just one quick item. I did want to thank Assistant General Manager Deborah Hart and staff for filling in for me for the last couple of weeks while I was out. So other than that, I'm glad to be back.
Okay, welcome. And that'll do it for that. And I'll just hold off for Sonia. Next agenda item is correspondence.
Commissioners, there were 2 items of correspondence. These are both informational. If you do have questions, given the amount of time in the agenda, we can follow up with any additional questions either later or during our check-ins. The 2 agenda items, one had to do with the update of the legislative session and various different bills in different stages that we're monitoring. The other one had to do with a number of different updates associated with the Willamette Water Treatment Plant, and really appreciate Karen Kelly and her staff for providing that. And if you do have any other questions, we'd be happy to follow up with you on those.
Okay. That is
Kyle,
that.
can you hear me now?
We got you. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to do the test quick. I logged out and logged back in. Apparently that did the
Okay,
trick.
good.
If you
And
will hold.
did
Thanks.
you have anything for the good of the order from items
No,
from
I'm
board
gonna
members?
leave that alone.
Okay, and so, and you know that we put it back to 2 minutes, maximum an hour. For public
I
testimony.
understand that. Thank you.
Okay. The next agenda item is going to be the public input, and I'll read the preamble. I'm going to welcome you to the public input session of the meeting. It's a public non-profit organization whose charter is to deliver drinking water and electricity to our community. Although this forum is not used for an open back and forth dialogue, commissioners and staff value hearing diverse perspectives and receiving community input. Speakers are asked to keep their testimony relevant to EWEB business and request that everyone share their comments in a productive and respectful manner. Should speakers or audience members become disruptive, they may be muted and or removed from the meeting. At this time, we have 31, I don't know how many, we have 31 total people requesting to speak to the. When your name is called, you'll have up to 2 minutes to provide your comments. Public session is now open, and I'll start with the people online on phone. And the first is Andrew Simran.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. You have 2 minutes.
Would you like me to begin now? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Andrew Simran. I reside in the River Road neighborhood, Ward 7. I'm coming to you tonight with concern about the pilot with the University of Oregon to spin up a turbine to generate electricity. I think that EWEB must cancel the pilot immediately. Increase localized emissions, impacting air quality along the greenway that I frequent when riding my bicycle. And we know that there are many other ways to bring power into the grid. And if we're concerned about resilience, we can focus on demand response policies. With more technology and smart meters, you know, this will be easier to roll out and help with that demand and shifting the load as well to when we have more renewable.
You ask him to turn it up. I can't hear him.
Could you try and speak up a little bit, Andrew?
Yes. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah. You got about 30 seconds.
Okay. Anyway, I would just, EWEB should cancel the pilot immediately. We know that there's other ways to bring demand, like things like demand response to shift the load for peak load. And we need to be looking at policies to build out local renewable energy generation, such as geothermal. And we know that we aren't expecting supply shortages, and especially that we are a tier 1 BPA customer. We know that they provide mostly clean hydro power that has low carbon intensity. So again,
Okay.
Please cancel the pilot.
Thank you
immediately.
Thank you very much, Andrew. The next speaker is Rio Davidson.
Hi, my name is Rio Davidson. Coming to you, I wanted to talk to the commissioners about the measure here that we're talking about tonight. I feel that your duty is source water protection and public health, especially for Mackenzie's Eugene primary drinking water source. I wanted to speak about aerial pesticide spraying and other industrial activity that occurs every spring and fall in parts of the McKenzie watershed. Unfortunately, there's drift and runoff that can carry chemicals into the waterways. I'm concerned especially about the amount of chemicals being used on our watershed. Each clear cut on our watershed is sprayed over multiple years. I'm also concerned about the latest research and the amount of forever chemicals that are being used in pesticides. The study on the safety of these chemicals is run by the chemical companies. I've done a lot of research and know for a fact that these chemicals are not safe for our drinking water. Oregon law allows spraying to be done far too close to water sources such as the McKenzie River. There have been multiple accounts of drift from these aerial spraying operations documented in Oregon. Triangle Lake area has been dealing with this issue for some time. Gold Beach also had an incident a few years ago where an entire rural neighborhood was subject to drift from aerial spraying. The idea that we're applying these pesticides to our watersheds is alarming and unsafe. This measure will help the community to protect our watersheds from this direct harm. The current system of Oregon law is written by the chemical companies to protect them and their profits. It is again a way of subsidizing the chemical companies and socializing the high cost of the harm, where it is left to EWEB and the ratepayers to try and clean the water that is being contaminated by the timber industry. Only when this practice of aerial spraying is stopped can we be certain of the safety of our drinking water. We all live downstream. Help protect our watershed for the children and families that depend on EWEB for clean water. To the commissioners, I ask them to listen to the citizens of the county. They have signed the petition to move this law into public forum by a vote on May 19th.
Thank you, Rio. So the next is Victor Olubach. Victor, are you there? You were earlier. Victor. Well,
all right.
You
yes,
there?
Yes. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Your time has started. Thank you.
All right. Basically, we worked really hard to get that petition signed, the 2373, to give Mother Nature rights and protect the watershed, and that needs to be done. All the people of Lane County need to vote on it. They're all affected. There are all kinds of chemicals running into the McKenzie River, and we've got to clean it up. We've got to protect it. If EWEB wants to do anything, they should be part of it and endorse it, because your job is to protect the watershed, protect the water. You need to, if anything, endorse 2373 and let all of Lane County vote on it to do the same. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Victor. Next is Emma Bartlett.
Hi. I live in Eugene, Ward 7. I'm here to urge EWEB to cancel the pilot program with UO utilizing their fossil fuel generator. I moved to Eugene for my dream job, which is working for a wave renewable energy company. And very quickly, my view of good renewable energy equals good, fossil fuel equals bad, that became a lot more nuanced. I definitely have an understanding that we can't effectively combat the climate crisis and meet the demands of our communities unless we utilize some imperfect solutions. This seems to be the justification posed in the article posted to EWEB's website about this pilot program, but I believe that this statement was misleading, and based on the information I've seen elsewhere, this is not actually an unfortunate means to a net benefit, but is actually going to set us back years into the future. I think that from what I've seen, the premise of this being necessary for peak demand in the future is dubious. That the claim that it would displace less efficient and more carbon intensive natural gas generators could be true, but I would really think the community deserves to see a lot more actual numbers there. And I get that this is appealing to have power available tomorrow, but it opens the door to utilizing this. Opening this door will, in all likelihood, lock in additional fossil fuels combustion and give EWEB and UO an easy out on their climate commitments. We need to do the hard thing
Thank you,
and
Emma.
set up our community with cleaner options.
Your time is up. Thank you. Appreciate it. Jack Dodson. Jack, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you. Your time is starting at 2
Okay.
minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep this short. I'm also calling to oppose the pilot project with the University of Oregon. This is going to increase local emissions, on the slim chance that it, lowers statewide emissions, which, I'm sorry, because of the lack of transparency around this from both EWEB and from the university, makes me very skeptical about the claims being made. It would have been nice to let ratepayers know. Also, I forgot to stand in Ward 3. It would have been nice to let ratepayers know more information about this pilot program earlier on and given us a chance to comment then. I'm also worried about the health impact from increased air pollution, and I think that EWEB needs to be prioritizing renewable energy, not falling back on gas. Thank you.
Thank you. The next be Andrea Stapleton.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks. My name's Andrea Stapleton, and I'm located in Ward 8. I'm also the operations manager for the Northwest Center for Alternatives to Pesticides, or NCAP, and I'm calling in behalf of this organization. For nearly 50 years, NCAP has worked to protect public health, clean water, and the Northwest ecosystems from pesticide harm. A supporter reached out to us with concerns regarding EWEB's apparent move to oppose the Lane County Watershed Bill of Rights through a process that appears rushed and closed to public input. EWEB's core responsibility is protecting our drinking water and public health, especially the McKenzie River, Eugene's primary drinking water source. And the risks here are not hypothetical. Aerial pesticide spraying and other industrial activities still occur in parts of the McKenzie watershed, and chemical drift and runoff can enter our waterways. So we are here to ask EWEB to please slow down. Before taking any position, please delay your vote, conduct due diligence, including outreach to the campaign and chief petitioners, and hold a public process with time for public comment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Natalie Stamaroff. Natalie, are you there? I know Natalie was one of the 3 or 4 that didn't acknowledge when you're doing breach it. Oh, she's not there. All right, we'll skip Natalie, and she comes in. We'll jump her back into the queue. Sarah Alvarez. Sarah, are you there? Okay, we'll skip Sarah. Isa Eisenberg.
Hi there.
No, is this Isa?
Isa. Yes, it's Isa.
Thank you.
I'm here to give public comment on behalf of myself, as well as some members of the student group Climate Justice League. I believe that EWEB, as a public utility, has a unique position to support and collaborate with our community for effective climate solutions, and the boiler pilot program with the University of Oregon is not an example of this. I believe it should be canceled, and additional steps to create transparency and input and collaboration with the community should be implemented. It is causing negative health impacts for our community, and I don't believe that the reasoning EWEB has put forward for the program is making sense. I think additional research should be done, or additional transparency and public input should be had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Annika Sanchurkan. Annika, are you there? We'll skip Annika and go to Drew Thomas.
Hi, Drew Thomas here. Thank you for this chance to speak for the watershed. I'm really heartened to hear so many others speaking out. It's a really special place here, and this Lane County Watershed Bill of Rights has been a long time coming. I think that this is an opportunity to stop aerial spraying. Others have gone into do a lot as to the science behind that, but I think that we all know that the water needs to be protected and that we do all live downstream. I think that this is a really unique opportunity for the citizens to speak out, and I would hate to see EWEB oppose Measure 2373 without due diligence, without publicly sharing reasons why, what the concerns would be, because from what I can see, the public seems to be very into this. So my ask today is that you delay the vote and spend more time considering the Lane County Watershed Bill of Rights. Thank you for the chance to call in. There's plenty of others in the room with me here who appreciate this chance to call in too. So thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Okay, that concludes our online on the phone testimony. Is anybody that we skipped come back in?
We have one unidentified number who has called in, and so I don't know which one of the three it may be, but I'm assuming it's none of them and a mystery person.
Okay, well, we'll just keep going and you tell me what we're going to get there. All right, the first person speaker is Gene, and I apologize if I butcher anybody's last name. I'll do the best I can. Exos? Eos? And then followed by Rob Dickinson.
Sorry, this is my first time here. Is this?
Yeah, right here at the podium, if you would, please. And you have 2 minutes when you sit down and time will start.
Try to compress my comments because of the situation we have today. First, I have, my name is Eugene Enos. I live in the Ward 4 Calio neighborhood. Two things I'd like to speak about this evening. I'm concerned about the added fee and charges for the new smart meters. I think EWEB board needs to be more clear on what's going to be done. It was implemented supposedly this month, and in talking to customer service, as far as I'm aware of at today, they do not know when or the cost or fees that will be associated with maintaining a manual read on the meters. My second item is I saw the recent article in Register Guard regarding the pilot program with the University of Oregon and EWEB. I'm looking at the future, and as per the article, it said natural gas generated in the coldest winter months can bolster grid reliability when demand for energy across the region is high. However, in the same article, EWEB Commission study reported the entire Pacific Northwest is at risk of energy shortfalls, with that risk increasing every year, as per Brian Booth, EWEB Chief Energy Resource Officer. At this time, I'm asking EWEB what specific issues has EWEB identified to improve and strengthen the grid reliability? Is the contribution of the 530X smart meter program part of this effort? Is EWEB considering expansion of gas turbine generation? And what future costs and savings can customers expect within EWEB's service area in the Pacific Northwest? EWEB has a long history of being a reliable partner to Eugene. I hope the board continues to balance the need for system upgrades with the very real and impactful economic pressures facing your customer owners. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Eugene Enos.
Next is Rob Dickinson. Followed by Aaron Neal.
Hello, my name is Rob Dickinson with Protect Lane County Watersheds and speaking in support of Measure 20-373. I'm here tonight because we were disappointed to see EWEB considering a resolution opposing this measure. Since that's where things stand, I'd like to briefly address those concerns and ask the board to slow down and take a more deliberative process before voting. Measure 20-373 establishes the Lane County Watershed Bill of Rights. At its core, it does three things. It recognizes the rights of our watershed to exist and flourish free of pollution. It recognizes residents' rights to clean drinking water, and it restricts corporate activities that would violate those rights. This measure is aimed at serious industrial harms, particularly clear-cut logging and aerial pesticide spraying that threaten people, wildlife, and water quality. Many people involved in this campaign have seen these impacts firsthand over many years. EWEB's constructive watershed protection work has never been the target of this measure. Much of the concern seems to stem from fear that EWEB projects could face legal challenges, but legal action requires substantial evidence of real harm, and experienced environmental attorneys have told us it is highly unlikely that EWEB would be affected absent such harm. Lawsuits are expensive, they're risky for those bringing them, and courts already have tools in place to dismiss frivolous claims. Organizations acting responsibly towards watersheds are on solid ground. Meanwhile, the harms this measure addresses are happening now, affecting community health, wildlife, and long-term watershed resilience. Our biggest concern tonight is the process. This resolution is being considered without full community input and without giving proponents a clear opportunity to respond to specific concerns. We are working with experienced legal experts who would gladly address these concerns, but we haven't had that opportunity, and it doesn't look like we will if the resolution is voted on tonight. So we respectfully ask you to delay the vote, share your concerns in detail publicly, and engage the community in a fuller discussion before taking a position. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Nielsen, followed by Jerry Rosenmeyer.
Hello, my name is Erin Nilsson. I'm a part of Protect Lane County's Watersheds. I'm a passionate member of the community who cares about the environment. As a young person, the climate crisis is deeply anxiety producing. I'm deeply troubled by it. With all that EWEB does for the environment and protecting the watersheds under current regulations, it still allows pollutants. I match what everyone else has said. The spraying, the industrial activity to enter the watershed through runoff is very concerning for generations. We need to start thinking about generations in the future, not just right now. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that it is on average 27 times more expensive to deal with a drinking water contamination problem than to implement strategies for protection. Measure 20-373 gives back nature its inherent rights and the community the ability to protect these rights. I'm also deeply troubled by EWEB's rush in this response, not doing due diligence, and being a community-run owned company, but it seems like you're making these decisions behind closed doors, that you've already made a decision to oppose this before this public forum, making a vote on it tonight. I ask you to delay this vote this evening so you can engage the public in due process. And it seems there are other members at play here, potentially big business. It seems there's a running theme here that there isn't a lot of transparency going on. So I'd like to ask for transparency to be able to outreach to everybody before taking an official stance to oppose this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jerry Rosenmeyer, followed by Christina Shaw. Shoot.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Rosenmeyer. My wife and I have been EWEB ratepayers for almost 40 years and 100% green power participants for almost that time. And I am puzzled. Oh, and I live in Ward 8. And I'm puzzled and disappointed that the board is considering opposing Measure 2373. As I understand it, EWEB's founding principles were local accountability for local resources. And that's exactly the same guiding principles of Measure 2373. At your last meeting, several of you stated that you felt the measure was too broad. Well, the measure certainly takes a different approach to humans' interaction with the natural world than previous legislation and regulations. But as I'm sure you all understand, today we live in a different and more perilous time than when EWEB was chartered. It's time when more and more people are aware that environmental overshoot is threatening not only water resources, but the very ability of the natural world to exist and regenerate. Each of us here is speaking tonight on behalf of Measure 2373 represents thousands of EWEB ratepayers who signed the petition to get this measure on the ballot and who agree that something more needs to be done to protect our watersheds. So I would strongly urge you to go slower on your deliberations and your decisions to agree to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina Shu, followed by Eric.
Good evening. My name is Christina Shu, and I live here in Lane County. I'm here tonight simply as someone who depends on clean water and cares about the future of our local environment. When I saw that EWEB was planning to vote on a resolution opposing Measure 2373, I was really surprised because many residents see this measure as part of a larger effort to protect the watersheds our communities rely on. My concern isn't just about the position EWEB might take, but about how quickly this decision seems to be moving. Many residents are only now learning about the resolution, and supporters of the measure haven't really had a chance to respond to the concerns being raised before a vote is being scheduled. From what I understand, the measure is aimed at preventing large-scale industrial activities that damage watersheds, things like extensive clear cutting and pesticide spraying that affect our water quality, wildlife, and long-term ecosystems. These impacts are already being felt in parts of our county. I understand there are worries about unintended consequences for public agencies, but legal action still requires evidence of real harm. And lawsuits are not something people bring about lightly. Courts already dismiss weak claims, and organizations working responsibly to protect water resources should not suddenly become targets. So my request tonight is simple. Please slow this process down, give the community time to understand the issues, share concerns, and allow all sides to respond before EWEB takes a formal position. Thank you so much for your time and for listening.
Thank you. Eric, followed by Janet Ayers.
Hi, my name is Eric Jern. I live in Ward 6. Two things. First, with regard to the watershed resolution, I went to the website that has a copy of the resolution, looking for information. I read the resolution. I'm not a lawyer by any means. I certainly support the goals of the resolution. I've been in support of protecting the environment and dealing appropriately with the effects of climate change and all of those sorts of things my entire life. However, there's not a lot of information about like the background for this, where it came from, who wrote it, and those sorts of things. And so, as some of the speakers have pointed out this evening, you need more time to explain it. I certainly hope that will be the case. It's going to be on the ballot. We're going to vote on it. So I hope that there's more information forthcoming about it, because as it stands right now, I agree with that it's too broad and would be very difficult to enforce. The other thing I'd like to mention has to do with the pilot program with regard to the University of Oregon's power generation system. I think that the idea behind it, EWEB's motivation for doing the pilot study is correct. I think we need to take a look at all possible sources of energy, especially for times where there could possibly be rolling blackouts. I realize I understand that it was a response to studies that have been done recently that look at specific weather conditions and so forth that could make electrical energy scarce from the many sources that EWEB has. And so I think that's the right thing to do. I think the article in today's Outlook was misleading. I think it led people to believe that this was going to be a long-term arrangement that was going to, rather than something that would be used only occasionally and for short periods of time to help EWEB and our customers, most importantly, weather short-term power outages. And I think that's a good thing to do. So thank you.
Shannon Ayers, followed by Katie Geiser.
Thank you. I'm Janet Ayers, EWEB customer for nearly going on 45 years now. And since you're the only utility, you kind of want to not appear to be a monopoly and certainly listen to all the constituents tonight that have spoken. I want to start off that I concur totally with everything that Gene Enos mentioned about the smart meter. I like the newsletter you send out to include the operative cost that's being passed on covertly to the customers. My bill, I'm on my Social Security. I'm in retirement now. Medicare went up. I lost $2 a month this year. I went backwards instead of forward. So for the year 2025, I noticed that your rate increases totaled nearly 11%, yet nationally the inflation rate, I don't know if they tie together, but I believe they do, 2.7%. So quite a quantum difference in the inflation nationally, the rate, and what EWEB is charging us. Please keep an eye on that for those of us that are on fixed incomes. We can't beat that race. The other thing I want to bring up real quick is the customer care program. That is a race for the fastest. I don't know if you know how that works, but on the first Monday of the month, you have to be prepared to dial rapidly to get in. And I was told by one of the EWEB clerks that program is usually booked out within the first 8 seconds. How do seniors who are affected the most with coordination, mobility features, even begin to run that foot race? Please offer an alternative to those of us that are not speed dialers. Thank you.
Katie, followed by Michelle Holman.
My name's Katie Geiser, and I'm with Protect Lane County Watersheds. Thank you, EWEB, for your many years of dedicated service and hard work, which cannot be overlooked. But what is being overlooked is the people's desire for greater protection of our watersheds. Today is an opportunity for the board to support our community in this desire. These times require us all to look at the rules, regulations, and laws that guide us and evaluate how well they serve us. It's time to free ourselves from laws and institutional structures which hold us captive to harmful outcomes. We do not want to continue forward bearing the consequences of inadequate water protection. There are those in our community who have died or suffered grave injury to their health due to toxic exposure. We deserve better. Thousands of Lane County voters signed this petition. Commissioners, join your community and take the lead in this effort. You have the ability to guide the next steps, to troubleshoot, and to ensure a positive outcome. It's time for the commission to say yes to Measure 2373 and be on the forefront of ensuring a higher quality of water for Lane County. Short of giving support to this measure today, we ask that you slow down your process and give it more serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Holman, followed by Lily Pearl Johnson.
Michelle Holman, I'm one of the 3 chief petitioners for the 2373. We wrote this law because we want better protections for nature. We want a new baseline based on the rights of the entire watershed. The rights of nature movement has been gaining momentum since 1990. 651 rights of nature initiatives have been passed in 58 countries, including more than 150 in the US, according to the Eco-Jurisprudence Monitor. EWEB is concerned primarily with the needs of ratepayers. We maintain that ratepayers and citizens enjoy many benefits, including good health, when the natural world is protected. We believe current regulatory standards are too low, permitting for allowable amounts of pollution to which we, the people, never consented. EWEB commissioners tell us they are in compliance with water testing standards. I believe you. But compliance levels are set by the state and feds, which are based on legislation relating to practices like pesticide spraying. Existing law doesn't allow for challenging existing regulatory standards. Measure 2373 is an innovative way to raise standards for clean water. And if your projects are not harming the watersheds, you've nothing to fear. This is not just about EWEB. This is also about the county. I live out in the Coast Range. From Oak Ridge to Florence, let the voters decide. It's messy to make new changes. It's messy to change law. Yeah, we know that. But it's just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. It's time for a change.
Thank you. Followed by Bernadette Barraza.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Lily Pearl Johnson. I've been a EWEB ratepayer since 1999, and I live in Ward 7. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to your group. I read Commissioner Borowski's resolution in opposition to Measure 20-373, and I got the impression that he's worried that EWEB might have to do some additional work in order to comply with the new law if it passes. And to that, my response is any new rule is going to require time and effort, more so than current at the outset. As a public utility, one of EWEB's primary responsibilities is to be a protective steward of clean drinking water for our community. Water is life, and we humans cannot make any more of it. Therefore, it behooves all of us, especially EWEB, to adopt the very highest possible standards of care for our precious water sources. In order to preserve public trust on this issue, EWEB needs to slow down and hold a true public process before they vote. That would include scheduling a dedicated public forum, taking written comments for a set period, and delaying any vote on Measure 20-373 till this process is complete. Ratepayers are watching, and EWEB's current approach reads as dismissive and non-transparent. Measure 20-373 is designed to protect Lane County's watersheds and ensure long-term access to clean drinking water, a goal that EWEB should be aligned with. The risks are real. Aerial pesticide spraying and other industrial activities still occur in parts of the McKenzie watershed. Spray drift and runoff can carry chemicals into creeks and rivers and then into the water that we drink every day. Thank you.
Followed by Jim New.
You didn't even try to say my last name.
Barraza.
Oh, Bernadette Barraza. Thank you. I've been concerned about poisons in our environment since the late 60s when Terra Chemical was releasing toxins into the Missouri River, where it wound its way through my hometown of Sioux City, Iowa. Today, I'm supporting this measure, obviously, and we do need more time to talk to each other. So I'm trying to cram my thoughts into this short period of time. But even with your support, you know that corporate America, especially the timber industry, is going to spend big bucks on big billboards and convince people to vote against the measure. And even if the measure passes by some miracle, it's going to be challenged immediately with appeals and everything. And this kind of behavior where corporate rights are more respected than people's rights really bothers me. Corporations have the right to make money, and we can't infringe on that. So this could wind its way all the way up to the Supreme Court and still be thrown away. Because we don't have the right to keep toxins out of our water. That's the bottom line, or out of our environment. And that's wrong. So I think we're living in an age where people with power, like you people here, that can vote to support us or not, you know, you need to have some courage and just believe that good things can happen, and all of the rest of it is excuses. We're in an era of excuses. There's always reasons not to. It's too this or not enough that. And when is that going to change? How about now? Thanks.
Thank you. By Nick Squires.
Commissioners and staff, my name is Jim New. I live in Commissioner Carlson's ward. I listened to the January EWEB meeting online and was disappointed in the lack of public information provided regarding the Watershed Bill of Rights. Commissioners had conversation about what was to be included in the ballot measure, but the public was left trying to figure out what you were referring to, as there was no attachment in the agenda explaining the issue or anything that was even an upcoming ballot measure. Disappointing. When I was part of the EWEB community table meetings and formulating key decisions on future resource adequacy regarding the BPA contract, public input and consensus were important to EWEB staff in making their decisions. The community group response opposed a future local electricity generation that was nuclear, specifically SMRs, and was dirty, methane gas derived. Yesterday's EWEB newsletter stated that U of O and EWEB are considering a joint pilot project where the utility would purchase fossil fuel derived electricity generated by a U of O large methane gas turbine. This is the first time EWEB has mentioned this and is not at a commission meeting. According to U of O Sustainability Director and former EWEB Commissioner Steve Mattal, this gas turbine would generate 65% more fossil fuels emissions from one of the largest carbon emitters in the county. Why assemble a public community table and ignore their recommendations? Was this an exercise in checking all the boxes? This proposed methane gas turbine pilot program does not align with the state of Oregon's climate reduction goals, nor the goals of the City of Eugene Climate Recovery Ordinance, or those of EWEB's own board strategic direction policy. 15. With no previous commission meeting discussion, were the commissioners even aware of this pilot project? Being that EWEB is a public utility, the public deserves an opportunity to learn the details and information the commission is reviewing in order to make their decisions. The shareholders or the customers need to be able to have a public comment and voice their concerns before decisions are made. Let's keep transparency part of the public utility process. Thank you.
Nick Squires, followed by Mark Rabinovitz.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Nick. PhD candidate at the UO. I'm a ratepayer of Ward 7, and I'm someone who takes seriously the words of your own bylaws. Those bylaws state that EWEB's principal purpose is to benefit the citizens of Eugene, not the institution, not the organization, the citizens. I'm here tonight because I think there's a growing gap between what EWEB says it stands for and how this board perhaps actually governs. EWEB has built a brand around environmental stewardship. You talk about the watershed protection and sustainability. You tout the Mackenzie River Source Protection Program. Your commissioners hold degrees in environmental studies. You have focuses in sustainability. Many of you run nonprofits dedicated to recycling, conservation, public good. On paper, this board looks like exactly the kind of leadership who would champion clean water protection. And yet when measure 2373, the Watershed Bill of Rights, comes before this community, a measure that would give citizens real enforceable tools to protect water that EWEB itself is supposed to be delivering, this board may find reasons to resist it. So I have to ask, if your mission is to serve citizens, why would you oppose a measure that gives those citizens stronger tools to protect their own water? If EWEB is already doing its job well, what exactly does EWEB have to fear from accountability? I urge this board to make its decision regarding measure 20373 transparent, public, and diligent. This is done through scheduled and documented public forums. The citizens spoke up in your own bylaws deserve absolutely nothing less. That was my abridged version. Thank you so much.
Followed by Sue Salegi. Mark first.
so I'm going to have a unique view. Half a mile south of here, 20 years ago, I tried to use the Clean Water Act to prevent the West Eugene Parkway. And when it went away in 2007, the Clean Water Act had nothing to do with its demise. It was a much better law from 1966 called 4F of the Transportation Act, which actually prevented pollution as opposed to regulate it. And I really wish I could support this ballot measure initiative, but there's nothing specific in enabling a transfer of authority from DEQ and EPA to Lane County, which doesn't even have a water pollution regulatory agency. This is the fourth ballot measure for, quote, community rights in our area, and the other three were knocked out in court. And we could instead change the law to prevent aerial spraying of herbicides, biocides, but that opportunity has been missed several times. And this unfortunately does not do it. It does not even say who would enforce these things other than vague references to a judicial process. I'm not a big fan of judicial processes. I think our legal system is all screwed up in countless ways that we could spend years talking about. But overturning the Constitution of Oregon and the United States is beyond the purview of a ballot measure such as this. And most importantly, to quote David Brower in his last appearance in Eugene in 2000, at our best, we have slowed the rate things get worse, and that's not good enough for our survival. And if we're really at the phase of mass extinction, we have to be careful in designing laws that are going to prevent this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sue, followed by Santiago.
Hi, I'm Sue Pledgy and I live in Ward 6. All water within the state from all sources of water supply belongs to the public. That's Oregon law. EWEB is chartered by the city of Eugene to serve the interests of its citizens. EWEB is owned by the people. As stewards of the water for the people of Eugene and Springfield, why are you opposing this measure? The purpose of Measure 2373 is to stop bad actors who pollute our rivers and watersheds that feed them because it is cheaper for them to do so rather than implement environmentally sound practices. As was mentioned earlier, it's 27 times more difficult to clean up water once it's been polluted than it is to mitigate the pollution before it happens. The risk of water pollution is real and it's happening now. What will be the cost and who will bear it if as degradation of our watersheds continues? The status quo is not good enough. I urge you to stay neutral at the minimum regarding Measure 2373 and let the measure to protect our waters and the health and well-being of our community to go forward as intended. It comes to mind that I live not too far away from here, a couple of miles away, and there's a potent public image right here, a mile from this building, and that's the Baxter Timber processing plant. And that tells us what happens when corporate interests, their bottom line is more important to them than the community around it. There's subdivisions right across Roosevelt. And who's bearing the cost for the cleanup? And what are the public health impacts? Thank you very much.
Santiago, followed by Katja. Sue. I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, my name is Santiago. I'm in Ward 1, and I agree with Sue. And yeah, I am just wanting to voice my support for 2373 and ask that you delay the vote and allow some time for legitimate process. Thanks.
Thank you very much. AATJA.
Katya.
Thank you. I apologize. Getting most of it. Followed by Jenny Forum.
Thank you. My name's Katya Kohler, and I live in Cottage Grove. And in 2015, we experienced aerial spray drift and got very involved with trying to stop the practice, and met a lot of other people in the process that also have been affected by the toxins from forestry sprayings. And that led me down the path of getting really involved with trying to pass the initiative to ban aerial spraying. And we collected 16,000 signatures, spoke with a lot of people over a period of 2 years, and heard a lot of people from our county that want the spraying to stop. But unfortunately, the initiative was deemed, well, we weren't able to put it on the ballot because of legal reasons. So we went about trying to protect our watersheds in this way with the 2373 water bill shed override, water bill. Sorry, I'm not really good at public speaking, but yeah, it concerns me that it seems like the chief commissioners of this bill have not been talked to at all by EWEB, and I would urge you to speak your concerns and ask them questions about it before voting on it. I wanted to read you a section 2 of a op-ed that my husband and I and Bobby Lindbergh, who used to work for the DEQ, wrote about. We looked at USGS's water studies of the Mackenzie in 2012, and the report showed many pesticides that were found in the water.
Okay, can you wrap it up, please?
Okay, including 2,4-D, atrazine, glyphosate, sulfametrin, methane, imazapyr, and triclopyr. So these herbicides are getting in our drinking water.
Thank you very much. Followed by Dylan Thompson.
Hi, my name is Jenny Borman. I live in Cottage Grove and I'm a physician in Eugene. And I want to speak mostly to my health concerns about the pesticides in the water. The ones that Katya just spoke about specifically, we know that they're neurotoxins. They increase the risk of Parkinson's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases. They increase the risk of infertility. Immediately, they give respiratory distress, rashes, headaches. They have significant impacts. And I understand the concern that this bill might not be strong enough to stop aerial spraying, but I would advocate the slowing down of the process for real consideration and communication, discussion, opening up to the public. I think that your choice on this bill will certainly impact other people's decision. And so it really matters if you vote this down or if you don't endorse this. And so I advocate either to be neutral or to delay the vote or to vote positively on this. Thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker is Dylan Thompson.
Good evening, Dylan Thompson, Ward 1, EWEB customer. I'm here to speak about the Watershed Bill of Rights measure. I just want to say that EWEB's opposition to the measure rests on the idea that existing water laws are sufficient. They're not. History says otherwise. Every major watershed failure in Oregon occurred while the Clean Water Act and state regulations were in place. Those laws regulate how much harm is allowed. This measure exists because that permitted harm accumulates and it degrades watersheds. This measure does not replace existing law, it strengthens it. The concern about vague language misunderstands a little bit, I think, how rights work. Fundamental rights are intentionally broad so they can respond to new threats. The right to clean water is no different. Courts interpret broad rights every day. What this measure establishes is a clear priority. Watershed health is not subordinate to convenience or incremental damage. EWEB is not the target of this measure. It is one of its natural beneficiaries. This constrains actors who externalize costs onto watersheds, not utilities like this one that already invest in protection. For EWEB, it strengthens your position when defending protective decisions against private or upstream pressures. And I think concerns about delay in process also need reframing. In watershed management, delay is often responsible stewardship. Once aquifers are contaminated or stream flows collapse, there's no fast fix. Precaution is not inefficiency, it is how water security is maintained. I also think the enforcement burden is overstated. Lane County already enforces environmental and public health standards. There's also a public trust issue. Opposing a watershed's Bill of Rights signals that EWEB's operational flexibility outweighs ecological integrity. I think that reputational risk is far greater than speculative litigation. I urge EWEB to reconsider opposition and move toward a neutral or engaged position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody else would like to sign up to testify? If not, then I will close public input and ask for commissioner comments. We don't get into a dialogue. I'll remind you that agenda item number 10 is a 30-minute schedule to discuss this measure on the Watershed Bill of Rights. And so I'll go around the room and see if everybody wants to respond. Mindy.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. There certainly are a lot of you tonight. I appreciate you coming out and talking, and we're going to, like Commissioner Brown said, we're going to talk about this later, but there's just a few notes that I have, and I just want to say I don't want this to seem like we're either in support or in support of aerial spraying, but I'm absolutely against aerial spraying. But my issue with this ballot measure is the broadness of it. And I wish that there was a way to make it less broad. I'm really worried about the risks that it does open up for EWEB. I know that this wasn't written because you think there's anything that EWEB is doing wrong necessarily, but I feel like there are so many unintended consequences that we can't even predict what they are. And our job here as commissioners is to make sure that the utility is run in a responsible way. And just the uncertainty in this ballot measure really gives me pause.
Sonia. You're muted.
Hear you just a little
Just
bit.
barely speak right into the mic. See if that does it. She's got, okay, so I'll go to Tim and then go back to Mindy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. We had a variety of topics tonight, so I just want to say thank you for coming out and spending either part or the rest of your Tuesday evening with us, depending on how long you stick around. But I just want to say thank you, and especially want to acknowledge that this may have been your first time here at EWEB, or it may have been your first time speaking, and so I recognize the nerves around that. And so I want to acknowledge and congratulate and celebrate with you as well for accomplishing that. So thank you.
Mr. Borowski.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming out and giving us input. As far as the ballot measure, I'll give my feelings of that when it's on the agenda. As far as the pilot program at the U of O, to me, I see that as what it was represented to me as a commissioner, as a pilot program to get data so that we know if this is a viable path forward in the future. It's not my understanding, it was not an ongoing implemented policy or action that this utility is taking. We're trying to gather data to see if and when there is a need for peak power, that we have the data to look at where the best place to get that peak power at the lowest amount of carbon that we can. That's the data that I'm looking for out of this pilot program. It's my understanding is, like it says, We have not gotten into any contract with the U of O regarding ongoing implementation of the gas plant. So data is something that I lean into as a policymaker and a decision maker. And so when I can get data, that helps me make responsible decisions.
I'll go back to Sonia. Are you back, Sonia? Did you reboot and get voice?
So can you hear me?
Yeah, speak up clearly.
I don't know why it's so dim.
Now
Sorry.
it's working. It's working fine now. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for all the public testimony. I think this is what real democracy looks like. I often say that people don't come out unless you put something out for them to discuss. And I think in part that the public process has worked. It's given an opportunity for people to come out and share their views. And for that, I'm thankful, because I think it behooves all of us to learn more about the work that's going on in our community. I will save my comments directly around the watershed for later, but I was interested potentially, and I should have asked this during the agenda check and all that, but I was having mic issues. If we could move up the conversation around the Watershed Bill of Rights so that the people who are in the room could actually hear the discussion. I think part of the challenge is that after there's so much testimony on it, if people have to leave, then they're actually going to miss out on hearing our responses and hearing our logic around certain things. So I just wanted to put that out there. I also agree on the pilot project piece. Many want to delay it. I mean, for me, I'm a data-driven decision maker, and I do support environmental work, and I do support work around climate change. I also recognize that we have we have power needs that regardless will be purchased by natural gas. And so having more control over that locally is of interest to me. There might be other things that we could do to mitigate it in working with our local partners. So I am interested in it because I think that it behooves all of us to learn about how we can do better. And I see this as a potential opportunity. And maybe we learn at the end of it that it's not, and that's okay. I just think that getting more information is generally better. So thank you for the opportunity and for all of the wonderful public testimony today. And I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person. As you might be able to tell, I'm a bit under the weather and did not want to share that with everyone.
Thanks, Sonia. And I'll close it by saying that before I go to the general manager, that I really appreciate everybody's testimony. I want to tell Gene, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're not even going to discuss the opt-out rates until May. Is that correct? So
That's
we
correct.
have not implemented an opt-out rate and for smart meters. And so that's some information that needs to be corrected, and hopefully staff can follow up with him because you have his contact information and tell him that's not happening yet.
Right.
As far as the U of O pilot, I agree with what has been said. We need data. It's a 60-day deal, and we're going to run out of power. We need it for peaking, and people, as much as they don't like gas, go look at what happened with wind during this cold spell. We had 10 days that wind didn't blow, and if we rely on that even for peaking, let alone general power, we got a problem. And so we're going to have power shortages. We got to figure out that solution. And if this gives us a way to do it and rather not have to go out in the market and buy even dirtier power, so be it, because we're already at 93, 94%. And so we're on the cusp. And to say it's 65%, that's if it runs 24/7, 365. And we're going to run it at peak times. And so even in the test, unless I'm wrong there. So.
Yeah, President Brown, I think there were a number of comments about transparency with this project. I think one of the things that we're looking to do here, we think doing a pilot is prudent. It facilitates a public conversation, information that the board is requesting. And by having the performance, the economic, the environmental data, we can better assess how it fits with the rest of the portfolio. It is not to replace renewables. It is not to replace demand response or conservation or some of these other measures. But it is likely that the issues in the region will place new and more restrictive requirements on EWEB as a participant in that grid. And it's very likely that simply by having assessed the data and having an agreement in place that we can avoid other costs and potentially other forms and of environmental impacts, whether we run that for 1 minute or 1 month or don't run it at all. And so the pilot is just that. It is intended to work with the University of Oregon to understand the details of that data, both economically, performance-wise, and environmentally. And that's the intent of it. At that point, we can have a better conversation about how it fits within our portfolio. And so that's the intent of it. I think commissioners are correct in their assessment of that. And we will talk a little bit about that. I believe it's on the docket for next month, just resource adequacy in general and some of the issues in the region.
Okay, and then my final comment on the Watershed Bill of Rights. I don't think there's a person in this room. I know that I have had a dedicated to clean water. That's why I'm here. I've been here 20 years, and that was the reason I came here, and that's the reason I am here. I've done things. I've cleaned them up. I've spent my money. I've done everything I can to protect that watershed. And if I thought this was something that was, I'm flattered that everybody thinks that they want our input, but why didn't they come to us before this was put on the ballot? And nobody came to us. We did no input whatsoever from third parties or anything else, and it's on the ballot. We can't change it. And to just assume that the county commissioners are going to add something, I'm not going to give credence to that because I don't have confidence that that'll happen. So we'll have that discussion later unless the Commissioner Carlson requested that we may consider moving the agenda around. I remind you that we do have people online and the general manager recruitment process that are in Denver, and there's a time issue and waiting for that discussion to have. And so that's the will of the board. I'm going to respect Commissioner Carlson's request to move things around. And if it's not something we'll do with the state of our regular agenda, we're going to scoot right through some things. We have the consent calendar, and then we have the general manager recruitment, and that's a 45-minute agenda item. Then we have bonding in the city of Eugene, and then we have the Watershed Bill of Rights. What's the will of the group? Hi, group. Help me.
If I may?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could we, I can amend that to move the approval of the consent calendar items and the resolution 2602 and 2603 to a bit later. And then we could go on with the general manager recruitment process and then go to the others so that we can deal with the timing issue, the difference.
Is everybody okay with that? Just move the consent calendar, take less than a minute, but we'll move the consent calendar. So we're going to move agenda items 5, 6, and 9 to after the break or after the general manager recruitment process.
So after the watershed, yeah.
Yes, after the watershed bill.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to move on then. The next agenda item is going to be the general manager recruitment. So I will start that conversation real quick and say that, we followed a thorough process regarding the selection of a well-qualified candidate for EWEB general manager. We used public sessions, determine the overall recruitment process, minimum job qualifications for the role, as well as the compensation range. Part of the process was a public job posting on EWEB's website and posting with a recruiting firm hired by EWEB. Mycroft Fry Partners, Lainey Mycroft of Mycroft Fry Partners is attending the meeting remotely. There are 18 individuals who expressed interest in this position. After conducting screening interviews, the recruiting firm submitted 8 external and 4 internal candidates for the board's consideration. The board chose 7 candidates from this pool for shortlist interviews. Of the shortlist interviewees, the board selected 2 finalists for a second round interview. At the board's request, Mycroft Fry and Prowse completed additional research on these 2 candidates. The board now needs to decide who will be the successful candidate for the general manager position based off the differing skills and experience each candidate has demonstrated through their application materials, interviews, and reference checks. I'd like to open the floor for discussion. And I remind you that we do not refer to gender or anything to keep these as candidate A and candidate B. Commissioner Borowski.
Thank you. Thank you to staff and our recruiter for helping to helping shape and help us make this decision. I think the process was thorough, and we had really good candidates all along. I believe that it came down to candidate A and candidate B, and my opinion is that I'm in favor of candidate A, and I think the utility would be served well by this individual serving as our next general manager. Excellent qualifications, excellent experience, and like I said, I think it'll be an asset to the utility going forward.
Commissioner Morris.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to echo the sentiments from Commissioner Borowski. Staff did a great job of knowing where to help support us and knowing where to allow space for us to figure things out. I want to highlight Lainey in particular, who brought forward a list of candidates, not only that were well experienced, but also from a variety of different sort of experiences as well. And I think commissioners had a really interesting choice in what kind of direction that we wanted our next general manager to go and this utility to go as well. And I thought that was incredible. I think everyone took it incredibly seriously and really put a lot of thought and energy and effort into the process. When we got down to two candidates, I think we saw a very clear picture. We saw a very clear vision from both candidates, and I think that I support candidate A as well because I think the vision lines up with our mission and our values and our vision as an organization. I'm truly impressed by not only our process and our conversations, our questions, what we brought forward, but also just who came forward with us and making this decision that Commissioner Brown, you say, I think every single time that this is the most important decision we'll be making. So truly it was for me as a first time commissioner, this is my second year. This is my normal is hiring a general manager. But I recognize just how truly a huge privilege this is as well. And so it feels a little weird to talk about hiring a new general manager for the current one here as well. So I want to highlight that, but well and truly, I think that we had an incredible process and an incredible list of candidates and are moving forward with a really great one. Thanks.
Commissioner Schlossberg.
I too think this was a really wonderful process that was full of integrity. And so I appreciate Deirdre from Human Resources, or our Chief People Officer, and Lainey and my fellow board members, because I feel like we were very thorough, we were very specific in what we were looking for, but also open to hearing what our candidates had to say. In all, we interviewed 7 candidates and then got down to 2 candidates at the end. And I think that we have a really hard choice to make because they're both wonderful candidates. I think that they both bring a lot of skills and enthusiasm for the position. And when it came down to it, I think the things that we were looking for, we had to differentiate between maybe who was most tested in the field. We had to look at how you could balance different opinions, the knowledge of business model markets, how they wrestled with organizational change, so many different things. And again, they were 2 very strong qualified candidates, but I too support hiring candidate A.
Thank you. Commissioner Carlson.
Okay, can you hear me?
Can, thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. Also wanted to thank staff and Lainey and the team there. I know others have said it, but it really was a very robust process. I think that I really appreciate the community input that we had, the staff input into the values that we wanted out of a general manager, the questions that we use to get, to understand each person's vision. I think were incredibly useful. And I've just felt so pleasantly surprised that we had such an amazing group of candidates. Not that I should be surprised. EWEB is a wonderful place to work, and we do fantastic work in the community. So it wasn't that. It was just oftentimes in some of this we're left with making a decision, the best decision among bad decisions, and that was very much not what we were faced with. And I appreciate that we took 3 full days to interview on top of all of the other meetings and discussions that we had to figure out what we wanted and who we wanted to be in this place. And so I'm very thankful that we ended up with the last 2 candidates, incredibly qualified, and I want to thank them, and then also all of the other people who applied. It is a daunting process, and to put your neck out there, put your work out there, and make a vision for an organization like EWEB. It's no small task. It's no small chore. It requires somebody with experience and leadership to take us into the future, because we do have many challenges. And for me, the best candidate was also candidate A. So thank you all. I appreciate it, and look forward to welcoming a new general manager.
Okay, I concur with everything that's been said, including the recommendation. No reason for me to repeat the accolades. I do want to reach out to Lainey and say this is the 3rd time I've worked with her, and I couldn't give her firm a higher recommendation. I think it was excellent, diverse group of people and process. So I'm going to make a motion. I move to authorize EWEB's Chief People Officer, with support of General Counsel, to negotiate a contingent employment contract with John Hairston on a bill power, in alignment with current market practices and the compensation levels approved by the board on October 7th, 2025. The negotiated initial employment contract will be subject to review and final board decision at a future board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Harrison. Frank, you're one step closer to that. Yes, go ahead.
So we just made a decision to put a contract offer out for a new general manager. We just put his name out there. He's a very qualified person as of right now. He is the CEO of Bonneville Power Administration, and brought a large knowledge of the utility industries and also our community. And so I just wanted to, just put saying John Hairston. Now you got to go Google him and do all that. I just thought I'd throw out there what his current title is and where he'll be coming from to join our team. Hopefully, if we can negotiate a successful contract with him.
Frank, any comments?
Well, I have a lot of comments, but I'll keep them short. First of all, I really appreciate the board's efforts. I know this is a lot of work. It takes a significant investment, and this board has certainly owned this decision. The most important decision that you will make. I believe that. As for John Hairston, I've known him for a number of years. He is a very high integrity, well-qualified candidate, hopefully general manager for EWEB. And I think EWEB and the board will be very happy with that decision. And I think it's an honor for us to have someone at that level with that degree of integrity be interested in this position. So very excited about it, not just because it gives me an opportunity to exit, but really have a lot of respect for John Hairston.
Any other comments before I go on to the next agenda item? Which now will be the revised, the next agenda item is going to be resolution number 2607, Watershed Bill of Rights, Lane County Measure 2373. Commissioner Borowski, would you like to lead us off on that conversation?
Sure. So this is a ballot measure that is going in front of the voters. And the reason that I felt it was important for us as a board to take a position on this is because it has the potential to affect the utility as a whole. We've heard a lot of people tonight talking about aerial spraying and how this may have an impact or have a way to help mitigate the impacts from those types of industrial uses in our county. But the vagueness of the ballot measure and the potential unintended consequences that may arise from it led me to ask staff to not weigh in on the up or down of the ballot measure, because they're not allowed to do that, but to look at the ballot measure and read it and decide could it or how it may impact the utility and our ratepayers. After receiving that, I crafted this resolution, brought it before the board at last month's meeting. It was publicly announced that it was going to be put in there. We read it, talked it over, felt that there might be some language changes that needed to happen to it. I took input on that, and then also took input from our legal counsel as to what was the best way to present it going forward. After talks with the legal counsel, we crafted the resolution number 2607 that's before us tonight. This in no way is taking the ability of the voters to make a decision on this decision. My feeling on it is I'm looking at EWEB as a whole, and that the vaguity and the uncertainty of it makes me not be in favor of it as an EWEB board member. I'll put it for discussion.
Okay. Other comments by other commissioners? Anybody want to chime in? Sonia?
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion that we had earlier. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things I've been able to do to review and research the measure after our last meeting and then in subsequent conversations. I've been able to talk to the chief petitioners, attended a neighborhood meeting where this was discussed. I've asked for some additional data and follow-up from our staff, looking at testing, looking at some of our watershed protection projects. We just sat through, probably at least 30 minutes. I mean, it was kind of split between a few different issues, but at least 30 minutes of public testimony on this. And I'm sorry, my voice is a little hoarse here, but what I keep coming back to is that, it is written very broadly. I'm a volunteer. All of the other commissioners on this board are volunteers. We do have to rely on experts to make these decisions. The experts that we have at our disposal are the staff and our lawyers who do this watershed protection work all the time. And for those of you in the audience who maybe don't know who I am from behind the scenes, I mean, this is some of my lifelong work in protecting water, in advocating for the environment. So this isn't something that I take lightly. My initial gut reaction to this was based around some of the feedback that we have received from staff that it would impinge on much of the watershed work that we do. And the watershed work, I mean, in 2020, after the Holiday Farm fires, we voted to put $4 million into the upriver area in the Mackenzie watershed to secure and protect our watershed. And that took a ratepayer action, but it was worth it because we do this work, and it's work that we do, and it's lauded across the state as being innovators. So I don't want you to think that we are against watershed protection. The problem, though, is that it is written very broadly. And I know that they say, well, just ignore it. These other nuisance laws will not, lawyers and judges will throw out the cases as frivolous lawsuits. And maybe from an environmental perspective, they might, but I don't know. And I would like to hear more from the campaign around how this is actually played out in other communities. And like I said, I met with the chief petitioners. I attended that other forum. I personally would like a little bit more time to get a little bit more information before I want to take a vote, because again, this is something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. But I would ask that if we delay the vote to next month, which is still plenty of time to give EWEB's position on how it impacts us, that the people that are coming to testify, that they're bringing the information, would talk about how this law protects our watershed projects. I want to know how it protects our watershed projects. I want to know how it protects us from being in these other lawsuits. And I know they've kind of waved it off and said that, the Lane County commissioners will step in, but I don't understand that process. I don't know that I trust that. And so I would like more information about that and some history there. And like I said, it may or may not change my ultimate decision, but I am open to a public process. And part of this is allowing people to come and testify and to email us. And I have received tens and tens of messages over the last couple of days, both in support and against the measure itself. So I personally would like to ask the commissioners to give me a little bit more time. And if that's not your druthers this evening, I understand. I may abstain, and that's fine. I just would like a little bit more time if you would be willing. So
Can I, before I go
that's
to
my
the next input, could I ask you a clarifying question for process? Because
Sure.
I'm looking at our agendas, and I want to know how that would work. How would, if somebody brought more information to the table, the ballot measure is already, we can't change it, we can't alter it or do anything else. But if somebody brought more information to the table, how would we process that as a board and with input and back and forth? Because I don't see where it gets on the agenda, where we have a discussion, where we get input, because we're getting some material and then we have to respond to it, and then we're into April, and our agendas are pretty full, and this is on the ballot in May. So I just wondered about process, how this would work in your eyes if we delayed and asked for more information.
I mean, in my opinion, I would hope that they email me. I'm more than willing to look at that. I'd like the time to actually talk more with our lawyers about it, and I'd like some additional history about how it plays out. That doesn't have to happen in the public meeting necessarily, although we would have to have another time in the March agenda, which should be more than enough time to be able to have the conversation and vote on it. We could limit the public testimony on that side and just, I could instead hold some other meetings with people individually.
All right, but I just want to make sure we comply with open meetings law and have with 3 people or, more than people debating and discussing things like that. So I understand what your request is. Thank you.
Can I also say one last thing?
Sure.
The details do matter. And again, for me, I want them to be able to give us the specifics, because we keep hearing pesticides are bad. Yes, I don't disagree with that. Pesticides are bad. We want less of them. I have looked at the testing over the last few years that we do, and I'm not saying that there's pesticides, but that's in our watershed, right? But again, the details matter. And what their argument is that pesticides are bad. We should vote against all pesticides. I still don't understand how this achieves that in part. It's like saying, well, this supports puppies. We all love puppies. How could you be against puppies? Like, well, I'm not against puppies, but maybe if we had 100,000 puppies dropped into the town and all the other, consequences that go with that, I'm worried about the consequences. And I want to encourage them to help me understand how these consequences are mitigated. And if they can't, I'm not going to change my mind, but I do want to provide them with the opportunity to give me some other input. So thank you, commissioners, for entertaining the idea.
All right. Okay. I'm going to hear from everybody before we take up that question. So Commissioner Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I have an idea for a new ordinance, and it's Commissioner Carlson's puppy idea. So we can maybe talk about that next meeting. But yeah, I want to take an opportunity to say thank you for everyone who has come out to speak in favor of this in person. We also received a lot of messages, both in favor and opposition, especially over the last few days. I think I got one about 2 minutes before I pulled into the parking lot. So I really, truly thank you for speaking out and having your voice heard. There are unfamiliar faces and names that are there. And I think we even heard that this is someone's first time tonight in being here. So truly hearing from the community is incredibly important. From my perspective, this measure is incomplete. It is extremely broad, does not allow for lines or barriers of what is a pollutant, where is pollutants, who is responsible for pollutants. I hear very loudly that the lawsuits that there may be potential lawsuits that are frivolous, are minor, are something to not even consider. I'm not as confident as the petitioners that these lawsuits won't come forward, won't cause consternation, won't gum up the legal system, and ultimately won't harm EWEB. And that's really, truly what we're talking about tonight. I think we heard some testimony about why is EWEB even weighing in on this, and it is and will affect our utility and our programs and our rates, because if this measure passes and survives the legal challenge, which is likely to happen, then there is a potential for significant more legal responsibility from EWEB's perspective, which would ultimately mean higher rates for our customers. And that's just not a gamble that I am comfortable making. The work of the watersheds that EWEB does, and especially this is my first, as I mentioned, this is my second year as a commissioner. I'm truly blown away by how much EWEB does in water testing and making sure that we're paying very close attention to the watersheds. And I think it's incredible. And I recognize the intent and goal from the petitioners of wanting to codify that work and wanting to set that as the standard. I don't think this measure does that. And I just don't think a legal free-for-all is the appropriate response for protecting our customers, protecting our rates, and protecting our community. And so everything that has been spoken tonight is 100% in my values. I think that we need to aggressively hold polluters responsible for their actions. And I think that we need to do so with intent and intention. The law is set up to be precise. This is a very blunt tool, and I don't think it will accomplish what is being sought to accomplish. So regardless of what happens with this particular resolution, regardless of what happens to the measure as a whole, come May, I truly hope that we can come together to talk about how we can hold the polluters, the main polluters, accountable for their terrible, terrible actions and for harming our community. I'm just not confident that this measure does that. I hear Commissioner Carlson's call for a delay to learn more information. If that's the will of the board, I would be comfortable for that. I also am just unsure if there is anything else to learn. I've had a great opportunity to speak with many people, both in favor and opposition about this, and I feel confident in making a decision tonight. I also feel confident in delaying that no more than a month to March. So,
Commissioner Schlossberg.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, earlier I shared my opinion, but what I really want to just talk about is we've heard from people here tonight that this process hasn't been transparent or it hasn't been a public forum. And in terms of the process, there is an ordinance or a ballot measure that was put out, and we investigated it and then are talking about having an opinion on it. And so I don't know, I guess I don't totally understand what's not transparent about that, but I do think that it is important for people to feel like we are transparent and having a public process. And if delaying this 1 month so that Sonia can get more answers that she wants, or that the petitioners can supply more information, I think that to me sounds reasonable. I don't know whether it will change opinions or not, but it seems like there's no harm in just waiting until March to vote on it and giving people an opportunity to share what they want.
Okay, now it's my turn. So I agree with the intent of what they're trying to do. I agree with the observation that it's too vague. I mean, you talk about people that can file these lawsuits. We're getting sued right now for $1.2 billion or something. I think that shouldn't have been filed, just based on my knowledge of the facts. And can I disclose publicly how much we spent defending that? Okay, so it's millions, and I just say it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of money, and for a lawsuit that I think, in my personal opinion. But anyhow, anybody can sue anybody for anything, and they can do it with or without this ordinance. And I just don't want to encourage it to happen. And I agree that, I'll just look at Walterville. We're going to put millions and millions of dollars back into that facility to get it re-energized. And we divert 2/3 of the flow of the Mackenzie. And if you take 3,500 CFS and you divert all but 1,000, somebody can make the allegation that we're affecting the fish and shut it down, or sue to shut it down. And if they do that, we lose millions of dollars, and we still have the unamortized debt of fixing that thing and relicensing it. And so that's just one example. I mean, there's so many examples of, Quartz Creek, and people don't like what we did at Quartz Creek or in Rock Reach or Deer Creek, all the in-water activities that we're doing up there to create salmon habitat. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get involved in this conversation early on, but they chose not to include us. And so I personally don't see a benefit in delaying it, because any more information isn't going to change my opinion. So, but I'll call the question now, because Commissioner Carlson has asked that we delay this. So if there's going to be a motion, this is an action item. And so if there's going to be a motion to adopt this, somebody can move it in second, and then discussion, you can delay it, or you can delay it to date certain. There's a lot of different protocols we can use right now on accomplishing what's on the table. So it's the will of the group. Go ahead.
Before you do that, in my prologue to this, I explained how we got here. I didn't really get an opportunity to express my opinion on the resolution before us. For me, a lot of what the other commissioners have said, I agree with. I've listened to the chief petitioners. I've listened to their arguments, read their emails, And to me, their main focus is aerial spraying. And I believe that I'm with them. I think there needs to be more research and more, perhaps more regulatory things on aerial spraying. The intent is great. The implementation to me is not the correct way about getting it. One of the things that was put out was that if there are lawsuits that somebody decides to bring against EWEB for any particular reason, that those can be handled in the courts, and they can, or at the Lane County Board of Commission, and they can take care of those things. One of the things that does is delays. So if we have a perfectly legitimate process for something that is going to be done in the watershed, and we know that the courts are going to do it, it may take a year to do that. Well, a year these days in any type of things can add, on the scale of the projects that we're doing, can add millions, even tens of millions of dollars to a project every time you delay it for a year. We've seen that with our second source water treatment plant. The costs have just been escalating. Every time we delay a vote, it goes up another $10 million. So those are the kind of impacts that I'm looking at. Whether it's a frivolous lawsuit or not, it has to be defended, and it takes time. And those are some of the concerns that I have as far as implications, not intent. So I'm in favor of moving this forward tonight. I understand the idea to get more information. It's just how as commissioners, I hope we can look at this and say, how is this affecting EWEB? Not whether or not we're in favor or opposed personally to this ballot measure or the intent of this ballot measure, but how does the ballot measure as written affect EWEB as a whole and our ratepayers? Make your decision with that lens, I would hope.
So this is an action item. And like I said, go ahead, Sonia.
I wanted to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to move that we delay the vote to the March regular board meeting.
Okay, to date, okay, it's been moved and seconded, delayed to the March meeting. So tabling till date certain is not debatable. And so I'll call the question.
She didn't move to table it. She moved to
delay it.
Yeah.
I'm just
semantics.
Well, there's no, you just ended discussion. She made a motion that I feel is worth discussing.
Okay.
So if you're labeling it as a motion to table, then you're procedurally correct, but I didn't hear it as a motion to table.
Do you have a second?
Yes, Tim seconded. So I'll call the discussion. And, you know, our rules say we go by Robert's rules unless we don't go by Robert's rules. And so we can, so, well, you know, we've got to be transparent about this. So, and we want to make sure we get the best outcome of our decision and deliberation. So, okay, we're going to have deliberation. So it's been moved and seconded that we delay this discussion on this resolution until the March meeting. Okay, did anybody want to discuss that, or I'll call the question? John?
Yeah, I would like to discuss. I would just like to know, one, kind of like Commissioner Brown said, what is the process for this delaying? What is the process to gain more information? Is that just Sonia wants to get more information, and so they'll reach out to Sonia? What about me? The chief petitioners have not reached out to me. They've reached out to every other board member but me. And I believe that's because I was charged with helping to craft the resolution because one of the board members had to. Again, I want to know what the process is. How is the information that we're going to be getting being dispersed? And then what is the next process? Is it we listen to 30 other people at the next meeting, and then just if the maker of the motion could speak to that, that would help me make my decision.
Tony, would you like to respond?
I mean, I can't, I'm not going to dictate how other commissioners get information during this time and whether or not they take it. I personally said that I wanted to talk to our lawyers. I wanted to get some history on how these kinds of bills have played out elsewhere, and that I encourage those who have put this forward to tell me specifically how this measure protects our work. And if it doesn't, what are our repercussions? Because I still don't understand that. They said that we don't have this, and I want to give them the opportunity and the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to hear more about, aerial spraying. That's not where I need convincing on. Where I need convincing on, and this is what they're asking for additional time, and they didn't get the memo until last Wednesday or Thursday. And so I want to provide them with time to say that we're protected in X, Y, and Z way. And I want our lawyers who do utility type work to help give me an understanding on, yes, this actually has an impact, or no, it doesn't. And so I just would like to have that conversation. The way the rest of you get information or don't take that information is completely up to you. What my hope would be is during the March meeting, we have a limited amount of time for public testimony, as we normally do, and we can adhere to that. And if any of the folks from the public want to come, they send us their feedback in between. But again, I want it to be very strictly targeted at the issues that we have around this measure. It's very broad. It's going to stop our watershed work. They haven't even looked at what work on the watershed we've done. So I want them to go and look at our watershed work and tell me how it doesn't impact it. Because that for me is the main point. And when I make this vote, I'm wearing my EWEB hat. I want ratepayers to understand what this measure does to our ratepayers. And so I just want to be very, very clear on it. And I will say, I'm sorry, but we had 3 days that I had to take off work this last month to go through the general manager hiring process. And that limited my ability to do the due diligence on this that I would have liked. As a volunteer, it's been a lot of work to hire the general manager. And that was absolutely critical. And we had to focus on that. We have a tiny little bit more time that we could get the rest of it. And it may not change my mind either. But I want to know, because when I look at these people who are they're my people. I work to protect the watershed. I work to protect energy efficiency and climate change. I want to be able to look them in the eye and feel incredibly comfortable with the decision I'm making. And I currently don't feel that way. But the way in which you all take that information is up to you.
Sonia, if I may, I think we're all entitled to the same privilege that you're asking for. And so if you have the ability to request information and specifics, all of us do. And I don't want to do this in a vacuum where one person gets one silo of information and the other people aren't. I think we need to be collectively informed about this, because this is not your decision, it's our decision. And so hopefully we're all going to get that. So if there's, I'm going to engage staff, because we have time to do this and effectively do it. Because if we go out and we all have our questions, we submit our questions, we get them responded to, and then how do we process that because this isn't going to stop. And I'm still a little bit saying, okay, now it's all a big rush, but this process took months and we were never involved in it. Nobody came to us and said, we want your input. This is really affecting you and everything else. Now all of a sudden it's affecting us. And now all of a sudden we're important. We haven't been important until we decided to oppose it. And now all of a sudden everybody wants our opinion. Nobody wanted our opinion until then. So I'm a little bit saying, okay, what's going on here? So if you're going to have that privilege to have all that questions, I think the rest of us get that too. So, and I don't know what that venue is. And Frank, if you want to chime in and let us see if you can unravel this, because we got about a minute and a half.
President Brown, I think one of the things that I would have to look into is what the most appropriate legal counsel would be on this. It's obviously a specialized counsel. It's would not be under the normal board appointed counsel, just general counsel. I think most of the questions that you're going to pose around the impacts of what you have termed as broad or vague would be around the legal questions And so that would be more of an issue of legal costs than it would be of staff time, I believe, at that point. So now the venue itself, I would have to look into which public meetings laws apply to if you wanted to have an executive session. Obviously, the board cannot form a quorum without public notice and public availability. So those are just things I would have to look into, President Brown, but probably the most critical piece would be which of the councils that we work with would be most appropriate to answer the board questions. Beyond that, we do, as staff, could supply the board with responses to questions. It would be best to pose those to staff in writing so that we could have a record of the response.
Okay, well, there's a motion and a second on there at the table. I know that we do have a lot of time on the March agenda. So I'll call a question. All those in favor of delaying discussion on the Watershed Bill of Rights, resolution number 2607, we'll delay it till March meeting, signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-2.
So you can put me in the eye. You can put me in the
Put in the
eye.
aye. Okay, so 4-1. Thank you. All right, next agenda items, consent calendar number 8. Sorry.
I move to accept consent calendar A.
Second.
And Sonia, I'm just doing this because it's more efficient. Usually the vice president makes those motions, but with the delay. Okay, great.
Okay, any Frankie, a comment?
Yeah, just a comment, clarification on your motion, Borowski. You said accept. Do you mean approve? Consent
Approve, yes.
calendar A?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of adopting consent calendar A, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Approval of consent calendar B. Is there a motion?
I move to accept calendar B or approve consent calendar B.
Is there a second? Second by Morris. In discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, the next is going to be the resolution 2602 and 2603 requesting City of Eugene authorization for issuance of electric and water bonds. Deborah Hart.
Hey. PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, easy peasy.
I'm like a sensible way, yeah. Okay, whatever. Every time.
You're up.
Emma, good evening.
Good evening, President Brown and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Deborah Hart, the Assistant General Manager, as well as the CFO and the Treasurer. I'm here this evening with Aaron Ballmer, Financial Services Manager, to talk about issuing electric and water bonds in 2026. We have a brief presentation and then we'll answer questions before asking you for your approval to go to the City Council. So with that, Aaron.
Thank you, Deborah. Good evening, Commissioners. Again, Aaron Ballmer, Financial Services Manager. I want to start by noting that borrowing is a piece of what we do to manage rate affordability. It makes sense when used to support significant capital projects, and we are strategic in our approach to debt financing and use proceeds to fund projects with very long economic lives. This allows for the cost of construction to be spread over the life of the bonds and repaid by those customers receiving the benefit from the system's new assets. In terms of the issuance process, this slide highlights the steps with the board's touch points in bold. EWEB commissioners are requested to approve resolutions bookending the process. So by resolution, the EWEB board initiates and ultimately directs management to issue bonds. With EWEB as an administrative unit of the city, City Council authorization is needed, and we are slated on City Council's agenda for February 23rd. Should the board initiate the process this evening, the current financing calendar has us returning to the EWEB board in May with a supplemental resolution, which is final authorization for management to complete the issuance and sale of EWEB bonds. For tonight, we are at step 1, requesting you for permission to go to City Council for authorization. So why do we need to borrow? The short answer is capital projects. EWEB's approach to financing capital investments uses a combination of funding sources, the two biggest being current rate revenues and debt financing. This borrowing would provide $113 million in funding for electric projects such as Carmen Smith and Walterville, as well as various substation and transmission line upgrades. And for the water utility, it would provide $58 million to support the College Hill Reservoir rebuild, water main replacements, the Bertelson expansion project, and design work for the Willamette treatment plant. These respective borrowing amounts are in line with long-term financial plan assumptions as provided to the board last fall. And so this bond issuance is a step in execution of those plans. Of note, for the water utility resolution in your materials, the requested authorization amount is significantly higher than the $58 million noted here. This accounts for potential funding toward construction of the Willamette treatment plant. Should design prove viable and pursuit of construction be approved by the board in coming months, authorization at this time positions the project to efficiently move forward if and when the board is ready. This authorization prepares the future for the financing should the board decide we are to do the work. When borrowing money, it is good to assess the impact to cash flows. So what would our debt service look like? This graph shows a draft of annual debt service over the next 30 years. Color segments in the columns note the existing debt along with refunding amounts, as well as impacts to debt service levels from the new money and the refunding savings opportunity. For the electric system, the new issuance adds $7.3 million per year to our debt service obligation. And this is represented by the blue segments in the column chart that show that and show up beginning next year. The orange segments indicate where current market conditions present an opportunity for the electric utility to refund previously issued bonds. This is to achieve overall debt service savings of approximately $3 million. The red notation on the bar chart shows the potential debt service savings from refunding, which would be a reduction to our existing annual debt service payment. For the water utility, what would our debt service look like there? The new issuance adds $3.7 million per year to the annual debt service obligation. Again, this is represented by the blue segments in the column chart. As with the electric system, the orange segments indicate where current market conditions present an opportunity for the water utility to refund previously issued bonds. And this again achieves overall debt service savings of approximately $900,000. Again, noted in red is the potential debt service savings by refunding. For the refundings for both utilities, I want to note that they are dependent on market conditions and market movements. We will seek to refund all or a portion of the eligible amounts to optimize the refunding savings. So to wrap things up, borrowing is part of what we do to manage rate affordability and is a prudent financial step when used to strategically support significant capital projects. So we are seeking new money for capital investments and refinancings to improve existing debt service obligations. And management recommends approval of Resolution 2602 and 2603 to continue the process of bond issuance with the city. And with that, turn it back to you, President Brown, for discussion.
Okay, I'll open up the floor to any comments. I don't see Sonia on the screen anymore, but I'll just start on the table here. Commissioner Schlossberg, any comments, questions? Okay, Commissioner Morris?
No, this was clear and I have no questions. So thank you.
Sonia?
Yep, nothing
You
for
good?
me.
You
Looks
good?
great.
John B., I know you got a question.
Here you go.
It's down.
Okay, so on water, we're gonna go to the city and say, can we bond this much for capital projects? The amount we're asking them for is $218 million in bonding capacity, correct?
Correct.
And is that where you got the full 218? Was that where the $3.7 million in debt service came from, or was it the $58 million that raised that 3.7 million per year?
58.
Okay, so what is the amount per debt service if we pull the full 218 million? And why didn't you show that?
Didn't show that because the 218 million, the difference there is 160 million, right?
Right.
That's our placeholder amount for planning purposes with the Willamette treatment plant. If that project moves forward, it's anticipated that we'll do multiple issuances throughout the course of that project's build. And so the incremental adds to that didn't have modeled this evening. That is part of the information that we'll look to bring back as the board has more discussion on the viability of that project in coming months.
So the reason I'm asking that is if I'm comfortable with us moving forward with it as an EWEB commissioner, but we're asking the city council to approve $218 million. They don't have that information. Well, or they will have some of that information, but we're asking them to say, hey, give us the ability to bond $218 million using you as my cosigner, basically, right? That's kind of why we're asking them to do it. It's in this, no, well, okay. I mean, they aren't cosigning. Anyways, okay, so that's that. On the electric side, we're at 113 million plus another 79 million for refi.
The refunding is not another, it's just part of the existing debt. So the 79 million par amount is represented by the orange. So that's in our debt already, and refunding it would reduce the interest rate that we pay.
So we don't have to reissue bonds. So that we're only asking for 113 from them.
New money.
New money.
Yeah, 113 new money. The 79 is the refinancing.
Okay, so the 79 wouldn't add any more to the 7.3 million per year. Okay. And the 113 is the all-in number then? Not there's not projects that are built in there that kind of like the second source one, that the projects that you identified to get to 113 were identified and the funds figured out.
There are projects that exist in the latest capital plan, a capital plan that you all would have seen last summer.
Okay, so then I guess the last question, and this will probably be to the general manager, is on the water side, on the 218, why are we asking for 218 now? And if we're not going to issue it until that decision is made, we can go back to the council at any time and ask them for bonding capacity. Why are we asking for phantom bonding capacity when we haven't even decided we need it and there's no downside to going back at a later date?
We talked about that earlier. You want to answer that?
We
Mark?
did. Well, I'll start. So a piece of it is efficiency, and this is a process that we used for borrowings for Carmen. It's been years, but it is a process that we've used before. If the board decides to proceed with building a second treatment plant, this enables us to get to market faster. To go back to the city council, we schedule this meeting and prepare, then we schedule time to be on the city agenda, and then we're subject to a 60-day ERBA notice. So 4 months that it slows us down. In addition, it provides some transparency to our ratings agencies when we meet with them. that will be their signal that we have the potential for a large capital project. They're not as fond of being surprised. So coming back 6 months later and asking for a new rating for a project that was slated for discussion. I don't want to say that it's problematic, but it does give us an opportunity to be transparent.
I was just going to add to that, and absolutely right. The ratings agencies want to give you their ratings based on a full and complete picture of the bonding requirements.
So then that leads me to the follow-up question of that is if we go and get authorization for $218 million, we've got to put that 218 million on our debt service ratio, correct? No.
Not until we actually pursue the bonds. This is the authorization when we actually go and issue the sale of the bonds, that's when it hits your debt service coverage.
But you're talking about the rating agencies. Rating agencies are going to look at that whether or not we've issued it or not. They're going to look at it and say, you've got $218 million on your water side. And they're going to look at it whether we trigger it now or not, correct?
They'll ask us questions, I expect, about how we intend to fund that.
Okay.
And we'll direct them honestly and transparently to upcoming board meetings. So the information may not be available because you will not have made that decision. But it does not count against our debt service until we actually borrow money.
So I'm going to ask you, and you can't be a crystal ball here. I think John left his crystal ball in there, but do you think that by issuing this extra $160 million of water capacity bonding will have a negative impact on our bond rating?
I do not believe that asking for the authorization in advance is detrimental relative to going back next 6 months from now.
Right.
I actually think that it's beneficial for us to speak transparently about what's on you all's agenda to discuss.
Great. Thank you for answering those questions. I just, that will help me because I think there may be some city councilors that may reach out and say, what is this that you're asking me to do? And now I have a clearer picture. So I appreciate the information that you gave me. The fact that you don't feel that it will have a negative impact on either our bond rating or on our ability to complete these projects in the future. So thank you very much.
Just a clarifying question. You've already assumed debt service and a bond issuance. So what's the interest rate on bonds that you're assuming that we're going to get?
We haven't gone to market yet, but the preliminary estimates, it'll be right around 4.5%.
And that's what the debt service is calculated on okay. And rate effects. So we issue those bonds when? What month?
June.
This June. So we
about.
borrow that money. We have an additional $3 million a year for water for debt service. What does that do to rates? If we have another $3.5 million to serve debt?
For water?
Well, either both
or either, yeah. This is my back pocket info. So in isolation, that's $4.50 of upward pressure. There are other steps in the planning process that we can use to mitigate that, but in isolation, that move adds $4.
$4.50 to water. What's it do to electric?
For electric, it is $8 per month.
So the average water bill is $30. 40. So yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the percentage of rate increase just for this debt issuance. So just so we can keep that in our mind, it's coming up and it's coming up this year. So we're going to have upward pressure on rates again. So just for this issue,
that's baked into your
forecast. It's baked in.
Yeah,
that's what
you've already got it baked in with that interest rate.
We have baked in borrowing at that interest rate.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, any other questions, Sonia?
Good one. Point of clarification. I thought I just heard him say that the interest rates were 4.5%. The pre-meeting question that I sent, because I was shocked that we could sell bonds at a lower rate than we had for any of the earlier years, said something about 2.5 to 3% here. Sorry, I only have the one screen here, but
Yes, Commissioner Carlson, your question was on the bonds that we were refunding, refinancing. And so for those bonds, because the maturities are shorter in duration, the interest rates are going to be lower than when we look at the entirety of the issuance, because we're issuing over a 30-year term. The interest rate, when you average that out over the entirety of the issuance, is closer to the 4.5% average.
okay, so real quick, let me reiterate what I think happened here. So we're refunding those bonds, but we're not purchasing others to replace that funding. Is that correct? Because I thought in the past, when we've done this kind of debt refinancing, it's usually because there's some amount of debt we hold and there's new debt that we can get that has a lower interest rate, and that's how we save it. But
that would be what we would be doing. We would be issuing new bonds that would pay off old bonds at higher interest rates. Those have shorter maturities, which is why the interest rate is more favorable in our refundings. So within each bond series, there are different maturities. And so there's an overall average interest rate, but there's no single interest rate that we pay.
okay, got it. So the section that we're refunding has the lower interest rate that is listed on the pre-meeting questions. The other debt that we're purchasing, because it has a longer time, that has a higher interest rate, and that's the 4.5% that he mentioned.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, we got, this is an action item, and I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2602 as a separate motion, and then 2603 following it.
Move to adopt 2602.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimously.
I move to approve resolution 2603.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Break time. 10 minutes. We'll adjourn at 8:10. Thank you.
Yes, President Brown, Commissioners, good evening. For the audio record, Frank Lawson, General Manager. This is part of an annual process that the board has agreed to take on to review the policies that are the board's responsibility and on an annual basis. And so in total, there's, oops, wait a minute here. Oh, this was, there aren't any slides for this? No. Oh, okay. In general, I want to say there are 44 different policies that the board is responsible for. And so staff has put forth a number of, in the background material, a number of proposed recommendations for your consideration. And so this is a conversation that the board can have to go through those. And so be happy to entertain any questions about those policy revisions.
A question from anybody on the board about what's proposed for the changes? John?
On the external commissioner communications, I just had a question. So and the revision says any communications by a commissioner to the media which espouses an individual's viewpoint on an EWEB related subject matter should be represented as the commissioner's own viewpoint. Totally understand that. Made clear that it does not represent the position of the board and should be shared with fellow commissioners and the general manager well in advance, typically 48 hours of expected publication. My question on that is the logistics of that. So a reporter comes to me and asks me a question, and I respond and say, my opinion is this. How do I have a way of knowing to get you guys that information 48 hours before? I have no idea when his publication deadline is. I'm just looking, I love the idea of it. I want to be made aware of if something's going out into the media, and myself as an EWEB board member, even though I'm speaking on my own behalf, John, there's things that are drawn, inferences that are drawn that this is my position on whatever, and my position might represent the board and EWEB as a whole. So I appreciate wanting to be aware of those types of things. I just don't know the logistics on this and how that would play out.
Yeah, President Borowski, I went back in time just for a second there. Sorry, President Brown. There were a couple considerations in our recommendation here. One of them, this does not refer to external communications that you would have with constituents or interested parties. This was specifically related to interactions that you would have with media. Also, we wanted to make sure it was clear that it had to do with some kind of EWEB issue or agenda item or position that related to EWEB work. And so we wanted to make sure that that was clarified. The advance notice, you're absolutely correct. We kind of said typically but in many cases with media, you don't exactly know. I think that many of these policies, if you look at their history, they go back to the early 2000s, where this, for example, is a potential courtesy to your fellow commissioners. It's probably based on public meetings laws would be best to route that through the general manager's office. That, hey, I had this opportunity to interact with media on this subject. I expressed my view, and then we could inform the other commissioners. The 48 hours was that could be stricken. It could just be in advance when possible. Something to that effect. We also recognize that there are times when media is a bit hard to predict, but this was really designed to be a courtesy to fellow commissioners and on subject matter that was relevant to EWEB, expressing an individual view, and also on something that was pertaining to your personal perspective.
No other questions or comments?
Yeah, just to be clear, are you proposing that you think the language is okay with the exception of the 48 hours, which was typical, or whether just in advance is appropriate?
I just would like to know what the procedure would be to implement this. So I would love just like a real world example. So the New York Times calls me. I'm not going to use the local paper. The New York Times calls and says, I see that you're thinking about taking out a dam on the Mackenzie River. Can you tell me more about that? And I say, give them, yes, we're looking at taking out a dam, blah, 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 blah. So now I don't know how they're going to use that. I go, I'm speaking on on behalf of myself. The board has said we're going to take out a dam. This is my understanding of it. As my views. I don't know how that reporter is going to take that stuff. So I have to then digest what I had said to the reporter, send it to you, you disperse it to the rest of the board. Again, tell me how I need to implement this policy.
I would say described as exactly what you just described.
Okay.
If you make a comment to media on something related to EWEB matters, that you would say, I've been approached by media. I made this statement. I made it clear that it was my own perspective. Now, if it's a general view of the board, there are aspects of the policy which would provide direction in that case. But if you are expressing your own opinion, then you would route it to the general manager's office, just like you described. And we would make sure if you don't do that, and then you just, let's say, emailed everybody, all the other board members, there could be a serial meeting that takes place. If someone responds, then it becomes not information, it becomes deliberation. And that's where it can become dangerous and probably safer to route it through the general manager's office.
Great. And I'm in favor of the policy. I just wasn't sure of the logistics of how it would work. So
I think the second part of this describes that a little bit better. And we will work within the public meetings laws to make sure that that's appropriate.
Great. Thank you for the clarifications. And then I guess I would lead into my other board members to see if you feel that the 48-hour rule is the appropriate time frame.
Roger? You okay with 48 hours?
I mean, I am. It did start making me think about some of the other things that I do that we collaborate with EWEB on, or EWEB does outreach on in my kind of work hat. And it's not, really an EWEB matter necessarily, although we collaborate. I do TV interviews all the time for my work. And I do wonder if this would trigger some notification process around that. It's not really a position on an EWEB matter, but it's, in relation to a collaboration on an EWEB matter. So I'm okay with 48 hours notice. I think the intent is really if there's a differing viewpoint or a negative viewpoint that may, cause some of us to, I mean, this is supposed to be a trust building measure. If there's something that's different than what we otherwise might say, or it's there's something that's more controversial, I think that's when it gets triggered a little bit more, but it is broad. So
we could also add commissioners when possible to the end of, I mean, we cannot control media's time frame, but as a guideline, that would be probably appropriate to add.
Well, as it's written, it just says typically 48 hours, so it doesn't say it has to be 48 hours. So to me, it doesn't really matter. And this seems to be just really relating to when there's kind of a hot topic or something that either we haven't voted on or haven't discussed, and somebody has a different opinion and the media goes to them. I think that it is a nice courtesy to let fellow commissioners know, like, hey, I'm commenting on this going through the general manager, but just heads up, this is coming out. But I just want to be clear, this isn't saying like can't say anything or you can't share your opinion. It's just a way for an individual commissioner to share their opinion as an individual and then giving everybody a heads up.
I think that was the original intent, Commissioner. If you look back through the entire history of this, I think it was for exactly that purpose, and it has evolved a little bit. And we wanted to clarify it just a little bit as well. It was actually too broad before. It was almost like if you went and talked to anybody about anything, that was probably, oh, I have to make sure it's me. We narrowed it in a little bit tighter in that, and
You and then John.
Thank you, Chair. Two comments. The way that I'm reading expected publication and that particular word publication is what I'm hearing. And so communicating with the media, it sounds like it's a good general rule to run that by the general manager's office of these are comments that I've made. But the expected publication, I feel like it's the more important bit of I know that this is a story that's coming out. This is an expected publication. I'm expecting it to come out on this day, which media can communicate that with you. And so that's how I'm reading the 48 hours is, you know, not necessarily I have spoken, but I know that this is coming out on this particular day. Here you go, of what's happening. And then to Commissioner Carlson's point of sort of when those lines are blurred as a commissioner and also in our day jobs or in our own existences, neighborhood associations, what have you, by a commissioner to the media is the words that I'm seeing. And that's how I'm interpreting that is if I, with my EWEB commissioner hat on and speaking to the media, then that's how I would move forward. But if I have another hat on, even if it's EWEB related matters, you know, just making sure that that's clear to who you're speaking and how you're speaking. I think that would clear that up. So I am fine with it as is. But I also would be happy to make an edit if another commissioner has specific language. Thanks.
I will actually say it did come to that conclusion after I said that if I'm going to be identified in the media specifically as an EWEB commissioner, then that's when that would trigger it. At least that's, yeah, how I would read that as well.
So we've got John and then I'm going to jump.
Yeah. And now that I've got the guardrails figured out, I'm fine. The only other thing that I would tell my fellow commissioners is that a lot of times, you know, print media is different than TV media. I've had several times where a TV reporter will go, "Hey, can I come out and talk to you?" And it's for the 6 o'clock news that evening. You know, they don't usually sit on things for 3, 4, or 5 days. It's kind of like, "Can I get a quote from you?" And it's on at 4, 6, and 11. And so just keep that in mind when if it's a local TV media, it may be a quicker turnaround than, let's say, traditional print media.
Frank, just a clarification on the policy about communicating with staff, because we got a new GM and I know that I've always, any interaction I have with staff is copied you or Holly. And, but making sure that we don't overwhelm him, is that still the policy that if I reach out to somebody, you know, in energy and say, when are you going to open Smith Reservoir so we can go fishing? You know, that I got to copy you on all communications that an individual commissioner has to staff. It's still not appropriate to reach out to staff without letting you know who's doing what to who.
The policy, President Brown, is probably a little more restrictive than that. It says all communications will go through the general manager. I have felt personally like it's not an issue of control. Commissioners sometimes have specific interests and adopted the policy that copy the general manager's office if you do reach out to staff. It allows me to gauge the resource levels, the inquiries, but the policy is actually a little bit more restricted from that. But as far as present practice, that's present practice.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, this is an action item and we entertain a motion to adopt board policy manual resolution 2608. So Sonia move to approve. Is there a second? Second by Schlossberg. Is discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Next agenda item is going to be the City of Eugene joint initiative agenda. That's us.
That really is.
Hey, Sonia. Welcome to the.
Sonia is larger than life.
You're on the front side.
That's horrifying. No.
You're 20 by 40.
We're changing that, Sonia. Hold on a second.
What happens if I push this button?
Live from the red carpet. Sonia.
It's figure like somebody's looking over my shoulder all the time. Well, it's Sonia and she's 20 feet tall. But
So we just passed that. So next to the city initiatives.
You hit the.
wait a minute here.
Let me pull the board back.
Take a week off. Whatever.
Great. This is really commissioner led. We do have in April, the president and the vice president have a meeting with city council leadership and the mayor. These were put forward as potential topics to be communicating with the city on. And this is really for discussion for the board. If there's other opportunities or things to be discussed or positions to be taken. So President Brown, I'll just turn it back to you and ask if there's other things to include on the agenda. Of course, I can reach out to appropriate management on that behalf.
Yeah, I'd just like to pull the group up. You've seen this in your background or information. Is there anything you want added besides that? Or if you want to expand on anything? I mean, I do have a question personally about the fire hydrants because we've never monetized that. I mean, we don't know if we're going to get a $10 million. What are they giving us? Because, you know, it was alluded to that a lot of them hadn't been touched in 20 years. And if we have to come out with a big capital outlay and that comes from the water department, they can't afford it. And I just want to know what we're getting into by taking that.
Yeah, we do have an assessment of what the replacement cost would be based on the forecasts and projections. What we don't have, and Karen Kelly and Deborah Hart were the latest executive members to meet with the city, is what other value as part of some kind of change in responsibility would we negotiate with the city, and that is still in negotiations. I think on the outside, where there was really nothing provided by the city as far as monetary, it was about 2%. Was that about right, Karen or Deborah?
Up to 2 million was what they were willing to put on the table.
So that was their seed part, but if we finance it all ourselves, it'd be about 2% rate impact, if I recall, on the water side.
Believe that is correct if the city brought nothing to the table
Which is about,
in terms of cash.
which is about $900,000 a year on the water side. But the basis for the question that you have, I believe, is we are still negotiating with the city on what other types of value, potentially financial or otherwise, that we could get. So this is, it says explore the opportunity. We are continuing to explore the opportunity. And if it looks like there's something to bring back to this board that is more definitive, we will do that. This board obviously will have to approve it, and we will want to have all our ducks in a row well understood, as well as the legal pieces of that understood.
John?
all of these are great things to talk about with him. What I would ask of my fellow board members is to pick the top 3, because in the meetings that I've had over the last few years, you get about 1.5 to 2 of these things hammered before you start running out of time. And so if we can pick, I mean, like the first one, the public service facilities plan, that's an easy one. You just kind of say, hey, we've got this thing and we may need your help on that. But when you start getting into number 4, and that's something that touches the elected officials, the rates and the limited incomes and stuff like that. If you start talking about that, that's going to take half the meeting, because we'll explain what we're doing and then they'll ask questions and this and that. So what I would say is pick a couple that you really want to lean into, if it's fire hydrants and limited income or whatever, and just know that you can present all of this stuff, but you're really going to only be able to dig in deep on 1 to 2 issues, from my experience in the past 2 years having these meetings.
Mindy.
I just want to point out that we will have a new general manager and they will have a new city manager. So I don't really know how deep we can really dig in on everything, because both of them will be learning kind of the lay of the land, and they'll be learning their own entity and then learning about us. So this is pretty broad. And I agree with you, John. I mean, I would say in the past when I've been on this, I don't know how many things we actually even dive deep into, but maybe just, I know that we have to choose the year-long joint initiatives, but it really just seems like it's going to take a while for both the general manager and the city manager to kind of come up to speed. And this is not going to rise to the top for either of them of things that in their jobs that they want to focus on. So perhaps really focusing on where our goals align, and just talking about, kind of going back to the drawing board, talking about areas where we can really enhance each other's work.
And I'll just remind you, our next meeting is April 1st, and that'll be before Eugene comes in.
In theory, I mean,
Yeah.
it takes a while sometimes to schedule those meetings, and then they end up getting rescheduled. So
We've been through this iteration. I think April Fool's Day is solid. I think it is. We've gone through about 10 different iterations, but that's set right now for April 1st. Frank?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Schlossberg is correct. There'll be some transition. I think if we look at the April 1st meeting, there are a number of things that sort of in flight. Support in a number of ways around the processes associated to support the second source. I think those are things that are in flight. The things associated with the hydrants that President Brown mentioned, those are things that are in flight that can be kind of the top of the list. Some of the other things that are around relationship building, philosophy building, coordination, those things will have the opportunity to transition. We also have a relatively new mayor as part of this as well. So as it goes forward, there'll be some shifts to that.
Okay, Jim, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to comment as well of we have new general manager and city manager coming in. I approached that thought in a different perspective. Also recognizing the city leadership, we have a new mayor who's in her second year. So new is a relative word, but I think EWEB and our commissioners particularly are in a strong position of leadership and can really drive a strong agenda with new staff coming in. This is my personal opinion and perspective, but the city of Eugene has been really taking a strong look at themselves, I've seen as sort of a council and sort of a strong look in our community. And I know EWEB is consistently doing that as well. And so I think we're approaching a really interesting cooperative future in front of us, and I would hate to miss that opportunity. I think one thing that I'm seeing that's not here, and I hope that it's on the city of Eugene's list, but I would flag it of, I believe their sustainability staff came forward and said that they are short of reaching their climate recovery goals for 2030. And so while it's not incumbent and required of us to help them meet those goals, I think it's helpful and require a requirement of our community and see what partnerships are there. I just would hate for it to, I would hate for this opportunity from our commissioners to just sort of talk back and forth or talk at each other. Because I think that we're in a really interesting time in our community to really have cooperation, coordination. So I think all these are great. I have my own particular top three that I would support to your point, but I think also just to flag, I think EWEB, our commissioners and particularly president, vice president are in a really strong position to make a real big difference with the city of Eugene.
Could I get a clarification on about the sustainability goals and things, because I'm very rate sensitive and money cures it all. And they, I know how they made some of their goals. They went and bought a forest up in Washington and to meet some of their climate recovery goals. And if it's monetary, I would be reluctant to make that offer, that gesture to the city, at least personally, unless I had the blessing of everybody, because our ratepayers would have to supplement the city's goal that the city hasn't figured out how to make. And I would caution that. I just want to make sure we don't give that signaling that, because they know that our revenue is generated by what we do with rates, and it's not, their revenue is restricted, ours is not. And so I just want to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what you meant by that.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the resolution that was passed last year does have restrictions of what rates we could put on our bills from outside entities, which would include the city of Eugene.
But if they said they wanted help in achieving their CRO, and we had to dedicate staff or resources to help them achieve that, that's money. And I wanted to make sure that we clear about where we're going with that, because I don't want to, because they're strapped, and they've got a pretty big challenge coming up. So as we all do, and I want to make sure that we do everything we can to keep our rates affordable for our customers. So. Sonia, any input on this? Anything else you see you want to put on there or take off?
I mean, I've also gone through this process a number of times in the 9 years I've been on here and meetings with them. I do know it goes quickly. I think we can tick off many of these and just kind of give quick updates. There are a few that require maybe a little bit more, but usually what happens, we get to tee it up and then we say, let's talk next time and get some feedback. And I think it's primarily a relationship building endeavor and highlighting kind of what the things are that are going on collaboratively between the two groups so that we can both be on board with, the trajectory. And I do actually appreciate what Commissioner Morrison said about the sustainability aspect. I would like to know what they're doing. I mean, even if we're not opening it up, I would like to open it up as an opportunity for them to give us feedback around what their plans and what their thoughts are and how it might impact our work.
Sure.
So otherwise, I am supportive and appreciate staff outlining this joint agenda. I think these are the main touch points that we have.
John.
Yeah, thanks, Sonia. And just from our last meeting, some of the things that came up, and again, there's going to be new leadership on the city side as far as the council president and vice president. The council president's Lindsay Leach. Eliza's the vice president. Lindsay was in the last meeting we had, but this will be Eliza's first time in that meeting. The things that came up that they wanted more information on was electrification and the grid and how they just wanted to know how it works. They don't have the understanding like we do. So that took up about 20 minutes or so explaining to them some of the electrification things. And the climate recovery ordinance was another one that I think that you need to be ready to answer that or talk about that. But again, try and get some of our points across that we want to move forward as well. It's educating them, but it's also letting them know that they need our help, but we also need their help on some of the projects that we have going forward.
Sure. Any other questions? This is an action item, Frank?
Just one thing that we'll need to consider in the future, and this comes about, I think, from Commissioner Morris and Carlson's comments. We don't have a liaison role listed here. We have share status from our perspective. Solicit their status, I think, is another piece. For example, where are they at with their climate recovery ordinance? It's a solicit information from them category. We don't have that here. I think we'll make some notes of that. We don't need it for tonight's approval, but there are certain things that we would like to get from them. And we typically have said, this is what we're presenting to you, but we haven't had to solicit the other way around. And I think that's maybe a gap that we'll work on between now and April.
Well, I actually think that's a big gap that should be filled. And I think back to the fire fee debacle, and we had meetings with them, joint meetings, and that was never brought up in the meeting. That would have been a perfect opportunity to share, for them to share then that, hey, this is what we're doing and this is what we're thinking. So I actually think solicit feedback from them needs to rise to the top.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the joint initiative agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I would like to see that solicit information on there.
Okay, Frank, did you indicate that that's what you're going to do?
In particular, the categories, let me reiterate this, Commissioner, where we would solicit status from them would be specifically associated with, for example, the Climate Cap 2.0. And maybe there's a category here that would just solicit issues of interest from EWEB perspective. So I'll find a way to characterize that in the update, but that's what one specifically, and then the other one is just a general, hey, is there anything you're doing that will affect EWEB? I think that we could capture it that way if we need to.
Does that get to where you want? Any other discussion?
I think that the last one tend to explore opportunities to support city with encouraging economic development and affordable housing might be one of those where we also could seek their input to say where and if is EWEB and implement or can help move those forward might be another area to submit.
Yeah,
I don't think you're gonna be able to get those.
We left the liaison role blank for that one.
Yeah.
And part of the reason there is that it is to explore if and when there could be opportunities. People like the idea of economic development. Economic development is not free. It's not free financially or from a risk perspective. And so that's not something where we kind of went out and said, okay, we're willing to commit to something, but it is certainly something to initiate a dialogue on.
While we're on that topic, I mean, the city did get a big multi-million-dollar grant for Clear Lake infrastructure, and that's water, sewer, and but I don't know about electric because there's no electricity out there. And so, I mean, those are the questions I would like to see is out of that $6 million that they got from the legislature, is any of that going to go to offset our costs of serving that 300 acres?
From my understanding, very little to none.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Any other questions or comments? I want to call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, future board agendas.
I don't have anything specific, commissioners. I will say that there is a topic that I need to review with staff that we might like to have an executive session on in March. There's plenty of time in the March agenda at the present, so we'll look at the timing of that. But I, just as a heads up, can take a look at your schedules and might want to schedule that. I don't want to talk specifically about that topic right now, but it's something that I'll approach you with in the check-ins. But unless there's somebody who says I can't do potentially an executive session at 5 o'clock or 5:15 even, then that's just something to plan around.
Hey, anything else, John?
So and this you'll work out with the president and with Sonia about actually setting the agenda, but it looks like we added something to, we added this watershed discussion to next month's agenda. I'm just wondering, one, how much time do you think that we want to put to that? And that's something you guys can discuss, but just think about that. And then are we gonna see another 30 or 40 people standing here at 5 o'clock again? Do we want to kind of set early boundaries? I don't know. When we pushed it off, are we setting ourselves up for another 9:30 meeting? I just wanted to put it out there for future events.
First of all, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be done before 9:30, so that's great. I think that whoever wants to show up for public, like we can't really limit public testimony. People can come for whatever they want. So anyway, I think that the president and vice president with Frank will figure out how much time we need for the watershed thing. But in terms of the public testimony, I feel like that's neither here nor there.
Like we did tonight.
Yeah, I think Sonia and I will we have agenda setting, and I think one of the things I was going to propose that we have a repository for information, because I know that if they're providing information to one of us or two of us, I want everybody to get it, because I know that they're not communicating at all with John. And Sonia and I met with them. And so I want to make sure that we all have the same amount of information, because if we pose questions, who do we pose them to? I mean, I have their contact, but how do we get those questions posed and then distribute the responses to everybody? Can we make sure that we can do that through the GM office?
Yeah, I'll look at the mechanism to do that. I think it's a fair request that you're all working from the same basis. How we do that within the restrictions of public meetings laws is something I'll have to take a look at, but I think it is a fair request that you're all working from the same basis of information. That is possible. So I'll look at that, and I think it is probably fair to say allocating some additional time in March for public testimony, given the subject matter, is probably a good prediction. I'd take bets on that if anybody would like to, and we'll consider all those things when we do the agenda setting.
And also, to be clear, they didn't come to me, I went to them. So, but I do have a question, is that on March 17th, we have an executive session that's scheduled for your performance review. Is that something that we still do?
If you would like to, I think certainly it's, I think it's a good process to continue.
That stays on the calendar.
I think part of that is because the way that we have worked this in the past, there's bi-directional communications. I have the opportunity to provide you with information about the organization, and you provide information about my performance as the general manager. So I think it would be appropriate to continue that.
Okay, John.
So if you could send out a memo or let us know what the procedure is for us to ask for information, because Sonia's like, I want to talk to our lawyers about this, this, and this. So if I want to ask the lawyer about this, if you could send out and tell me the appropriate avenue to do that, that would be helpful.
I'm gonna have to look at that, Commissioner.
Okay. The next agenda item is board wrap up. Mindy.
Well, this wasn't my favorite meeting, but we got through it, and we heard a lot of public testimony, and we also hired a new general manager. So while I will be sad to see you go, Frank, it's also exciting that we have, hopefully he'll accept. But it's exciting to think of new leadership and what that means for the utility.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to thank the board. I think that there was a tough couple agenda items tonight. I think, and I think we as a board and handled it very well. And I've been to public meetings with elected officials who do not handle it well. And those opportunities always present themselves when folks come out and disagree and are very loud and verbose about it. So I just want to thank the board and thank staff for these challenging times. Thanks. Check.
Okay.
I have two comments. Well, three. One, I wanted to just to give a quick story about something that I think we might be able to do or we should consider as a board policy. So last year when we voted to change the SDC fees, I think I mentioned at the time that I'd just gotten quote on what the fees would be and what the implementation would be. And then I went to the bank and, got all the loan documents lined up, and then we voted and it got implemented within a few weeks. And that immediately changed. And yes, I know I'm on the board, I should know that, but thinking with my public citizen hat around what the implications of that are, I think there might be an opportunity to ease our process with having 90-day quotes or other standard things that people, expect in the general public. And so it's just something that I would, if others were interested in looking at those kind of policies, this might be a kind of transitionary policy that encourages housing and economic development, but doesn't cost us a lot, but it does make the process easier for people who are attempting to do these kind of projects. It's not easy. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my life, and it's mind-boggling. So, I feel for people who have to deal with this day in and day out, and I'm thankful that I'm getting this firsthand perspective into engaging with our utility and our public processes in this way. So I can't see any head nods, so I don't know if people are generally supportive of that conversation or not. I did want to bring it up during the board agendas, but I got jumped over and didn't want to interrupt the conversation. So
It was to restate what you want to do. You want to revisit the voting policy. We voted on an STC methodology, and then 10 days later, you were affected by it, or what?
we voted on a rate change.
Right.
And so that
Not on
that
STCs.
okay. So there is a portion of our fees that, I can show you, but it goes onto the bill. So it's that, and it's the rate that we charge for water and sewer. And so what happens is that, we get a quote, we up the fees. Anybody who got that quote within a certain amount of time, it was only a few weeks when it then changed. And so when I, went through that process, it's a minor thing, but I think what we could do is put into the policy something around, when there's a fee change or increase, if somebody has been given a quote, there's a 90-day window for implementation. So if it's a new one and they come in, then yes, they get the new quote. But if they're in that window of opportunity, because it does take a lot of work to be able to, go to the banks and get the fees changed, and here's the amount, and then we have to go back and do the whole thing again. So anyway, it's a minor policy change, but I think it's maybe something worth thinking about if there's others that are interested in exploring it more.
Can you do
So, President Brown, let me just weigh in on this. This was not the STC conversation. We deferred that, but we do an annual fee adjustment, and it's a connection charge. There's different meters and I don't think it's inappropriate at all to, when we do that, have some degree of lead time associated with it. I think the next time we bring fees to the board for approval, we can stagger the implementation so that people who are in flight, a reasonable in-flight period, wouldn't see something change between when they start and when they end. We can just take that on. I don't think that needs board action or a policy. I think it's great feedback. But just to clarify, it wasn't the SDC methodology. We're going to have that conversation coming up. This was associated with our annual adjustment of fees, and we can accommodate Commissioner Carlson's request next time we bring those fees to the board.
Sure. Tim, you wanted to, Tony wasn't done yet. I'm sorry. You had two more.
Well, it's fine. Did he want to comment on that particular item, or is there?
No, Frank's gonna take care of that.
Okay, all right. And then the last thing I just wanted to say, thank you to the commissioners this evening. I know the next month may be challenging, and I appreciate your lenience and willingness to let me entertain some more thoughts. So I just appreciate that, and I know that it has caused your lives undue stress. So for that, I just apologize, but I do appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Tim, you had a comment?
I was only going to mention May 5th. Looks like we have an SDC methodology conversation. So that was it. Yeah.
Okay. John, have you chimed in yet?
I haven't. Thank you. Board wrap up. Again, thanks to the fellow commissioners. We worked through some of these things. I think our board functions very well. We saw that demonstrated tonight. We saw that demonstrated in our hard work in recruiting and hiring a new general manager. We project that to the rest of the staff, I hope. And I think that, these cycles come up whenever politics kind of plays into the boardroom. It makes it a little bit more challenging, but I like the fact that we all look at it through the lens of what is going to be best for our customers, our staff, and our community as a whole. So I appreciate the candor that you guys bring to this board.
I got just a couple things I forgot to mention earlier. On the 20th, I've been asked to present at the city club with the city council and another person about governance and things like that. I guess because of my long tenures, I don't know why they selected me, but I know Aaron's gonna prop me up and tell me what to say and what not to say and keep me out of trouble. And then I drew the short straw. I'm going to DC for the APPA. I've never done that. And I thought I was going to get through the rest of my life without wearing another sport coat, but maybe I'm going to have to do it again. So I'm going to be back there from the 21st to the 23rd, I think. Quick trip. So with that, anything else, Frank, for the good of the order? Welcome back. Thank you for 31 people that show up to testify this evening. That's like a record.
We do what we can, Commissioner.
Okay, well, thank you. With that, I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you.